Defining Duke, an Xbox podcast, is brought to you by, well, you. If you want to learn how to support the show, go to patreon.com/laststandmedia. Salutations, everybody. It is Matty here today, and welcome to episode 26 of Defining Duke, an Xbox podcast. There have been guesses all across the internet. Some of you may have predicted correctly. We've seen the name thrown around a ton, but I'm proud to introduce my co-host to Defining Duke, Lord Cognito. Cog, welcome to the show, man.
Lord Matty, I'm in the realm of the Dukes right now, man. Good to be here. Fun to see all the speculation. And yeah man, let's do it. Let's have some fun out here, man.
I'm beyond excited about this. Of course, I have a ton to say, but more than anything, I want to emphasize that for those who are unfamiliar with Cog, we've delayed our episode of Defining Duke Ultimate for the week to do a Get to Know Cog episode. So for those who are unfamiliar with his work, which we're going to get into a little bit, he'll be sitting down for an episode of Defining Duke Ultimate, doing a Q&A with a patron post that's going live right after the Patreon version of this show hits your feed. So be sure to get in there, post your questions, get to know Cog as much as possible. Cog, you were number one on my list right when we started making that transition. I was telling everybody, I was like, he's number one on my list. I was like, this is the man I want. I know he's suited for the job. And I'm thrilled that you were like, yeah, let's do this, man. So Cog's gonna be my co-pilot for the rest of this show. You're stuck with me, brother. Hope you end up enjoying this choice.
Let's build, bro.
Yeah, I'm really excited about our future. I think our trajectory is strong. And I want to thank the audience real quick, just for their patience. Because essentially we were talking behind the scenes saying this is sort of like episode 1A for us. While we're 26 episodes deep now. It's almost like hitting the restart button when you pivot co-hosts and you start to figure things out. Once again, we start to develop that rapport, which is definitely there. We've done shows together in the past, but I just wanted to say thank you again to the audience. You all were kind, caring, supportive, excited for whoever I brought on. And not only that, but just a shout out to the trust that was given to me. I don't give myself a lot of credit ever, just because I like to keep myself humble. But I was really shocked about the amount of people who were writing in saying like whoever Matty picks, like he's got it handled. So just thank you for your trust, for real. Thank you for your trust. And we're going to definitely make sure that trust is worthwhile as we're going to put together what I want to make. My goal when I put this together with Colin and Dustin originally and Carrick was I wanted to make the best Xbox show possible. Like I wanted us to be the number one show, not to get too competitive, but just I want us to make a really dominant show where it's easy to recommend and that you're going to get everything you need once the episode's done for your week when it comes to Xbox, PC, and general gaming news. But that's enough from me. Cog, once again, how are you doing, my friend? You excited?
Yeah, bro, I'm excited, man. I'm hype. I'm ready, man. Listen, man, I was looking up lordship from lord to a duke and which one's high. Like I was getting into it, man. I was getting into all the theology of it. But as far as gaming, man, yeah, like this is a pretty exciting opportunity. I love what you built and stuff like that. And obviously some with Carrick and stuff like that as well. But, at the end of the day, when I got the call, when it was like a, draft pick, you got your name quick called and I was about to put on my fresh suit. I'm trying to meet the commissioner. I'm shaking heads. I'm like, where do I go? So I'm excited, man. And, there's a lot to talk about in the gaming sphere. We got so much going on. I am just pumped. But again, gracious and thanks for the opportunity. I love what you guys have built.
Thank you, man. And we're excited because you picked a great week to join up, man. I mean, we got a lot of good news to get into, some bad, but a lot of exciting, interesting news. So for those of you who want to support this show, keep food on Cog and I's table, go ahead, join up on the Patreon. That episode will hit free feeds on Thursdays. Or if you want to listen for free, certainly you've tolerated us enough. You can go ahead and do that. Spotify, Apple, Google Podcasts, as well as YouTube video versions. We have you covered all across the board. But now let's get into, as always, our warm-up questions. So the first one comes from Adrian Pinter. Of course, we kept Cog's identity a secret so we could show and tell. So all of these questions are going to either just be directed at me, but of course it'll be for Cog as well. Or it'll say like new host, mysterious stranger. They came up with all manner of name for you, man. So Adrian Pinter says, hello, Matty, and the new host. This one's for the new guy. What's your opinion on Five Guys? If it's not your favorite burger, what's your favorite burger place? I swear to God, if you say Wendy's, I'm going to snap. Signed, Adrian Pinter. So we had a huge fast food debate in the early parts of our show. We need to know what's your go-to burger spot, man.
Wow.
If you got one.
You know what? I'm actually a fan of Five Guys. I think Five Guys. Yeah, I know we're starting off bad already.
Oh,
but
no. I need to find a new host.
I don't think it's that bad, man. I mean, I've had it before. You know, it's big in the city. Wendy's, I don't understand the Wendy's hate, but okay, cool. But besides that, I think I've had Fat Burger before. I thought that was pretty decent.
All right.
In-N-Out, I thought was a little overrated, to be honest. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, we're on the same page now. Let's go.
Yeah, Shake Shack. You know what I'm saying? So I'm pretty basic, bro, with the burgers. I mean, as long as it's, I mean, I'm gonna say, look, I know Matty ain't a fan, but I do like Five Guys. I think they're right. The shake game is okay. The burger is okay. I usually get my bacon cheeseburger. I'm usually good. But what about you, man? Where you at the burger scene?
Well, see, here's the thing, right? Like, I'll go to a restaurant for a burger. And I know that sounds ridiculous, but like Five Guys just serves these wet burgers, is what I say. They are literally wet. They're drenched, man. Like they come in the tin, like you make tinfoil soaking wet. I don't know how that's possible, but they do it. And it's just wild to me. And so I've tried, you know, I've gone into a variety of different fast food burgers like Wendy's, Burger King.
Yes.
Last time I had Burger King, I vomited. That was like 6-7 years ago. So you know, we haven't touched that since. McDonald's. I was a big McDonald's kid in high school, but beyond that, you know, I was like you know, you try a little bit of Shake Shack, or I tried In-N-Out. In-N-Out was a big thing, right? I remember hearing all about it on Twitter, and we went to San Francisco for a Far Cry 4 event. My boys were like, yo, we got to check out In-N-Out. We go there. I felt sick, man. I think my body just rejects fast food. So that's why when I get my burger, I think I just need it cooked properly. You know, I could name a million restaurants that just sell a good burger. And so that's where I go to, man. If I'm in the mood for one, I don't know if I'm going to get just general takeout. I wish I could, though, because sometimes you don't want to go through that effort.
I want to give an honorable mention. It's a New York City thing, but I don't know if you ever been Five Napkin Burger.
Why does that sound familiar? That sounds so familiar.
That is amazing. So that's kind of like restaurant style. That's really a restaurant chain. But yeah, they have a few in the city. So I would say probably that's one of the best that I've had. So you might want to try that one out, man.
I'm in the city enough, so
I'll get you.
You and I'll link up. We'll get a Mets game. We'll get a little
now
Five
we talking.
Napkin. Yeah, I like this.
Let's go. Let's go.
All right, number 2 comes from Max Gale. Do you believe that Xbox would invest in a big support studio branch? It seems like the studios that Microsoft is missing, but missing in quotes, is one of the remake/porting style, but also support studio. Do you think having a dedicated studio like Xbox Seattle or Xbox Boston will be a possible solution to have talent in-house that could help out when projects need an extra hand or two, or maybe even combine them like Sony Japan once was? You wouldn't have to worry about the years of buildup to get an engine and IP approved and running, rather helping out with other studios can get some kind of return a lot faster and even have a small project on the side that's not on a time frame, but rather an in-between project like Banjo Remake, Conquer Remake, Viva Pinata Remake, Gears Trilogy Remastered. I can go all day. They have an in-house special team already, if I remember correctly, ATG, the Advanced Tech Group. So I may be expanding them to an in-house studio of brains over brawn with a passion project of their own. So this is, I think, really riding on the coattails of some news we're going to get into. It's our first item on the list. But that's really with what's going on with PlayStation and their recent acquisition. So we'll take a deeper dive into that soon. But this is sort of, I think, a blind spot for Xbox as it stands, you know, between that and fighting games. And I've gone on fighting games long enough, so I'll spare the audience. But what do you think Xbox do you think they should start getting into the remakes and the ports like PlayStation's doing? And it seems to be a really popular thing now. It's a safe way, I think, to drive some strong sales. Do you think with all the IP they have lying around that they should do this? And the reason I ask is you look at what Playground's doing with Fable and what is happening with the Initiative and Perfect Dark, and they're kind of doing that in their own way. I think it's just that they're not using the title remake, remaster. So what do you think of where they lie with the remake and porting style studios?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, to me, it's a philosophy difference. I know we'll get into all things on the PlayStation side, but I remember when we had, I believe, Splash Damage on, and they were doing Gears Tactics, and huge fan of that game.
Mm-hmm.
And we found out their history was also prior to that more of in a support role. This is all prior to them their acquisition with Tencent, but at the end of the day, I kind of like where Microsoft is from a diversity standpoint. I don't like necessarily the just focus on blockbusters and helping out on that only. And I know some reports went out, earlier. I think Schreier had an article in reference to what was going on with Days Gone and the alleged, they won't be afforded a sequel. And, now they're going to be kind of a support studio helping other things like Last of Us Remastered get across the finish line and all that other stuff. So part of me, when I look at situations like that, I just like the idea of each studio being able to work on their own specific project that they want to do. Because I feel you get the most passion out of the studio. The last point I make, don't get me wrong, there's going to be times, like, for example, Halo Infinite. We know that's huge right now, right?
Right.
They got to get across the finish line. We heard other studios maybe pitching in to help out. I don't know whether it be Coalition or so on. So I'm okay in that role. I don't mind. I'm not anti them having one. I just don't want the focus to go away from what they're doing as a Xbox Game Studio family, if you know what I mean.
Right.
Still have their own individual things because I think that gets a lot of passion out of the teams. What do you think, man?
Yeah, I think what's happening, you touched on a perfect point, is I think these studios are so big that you are correct. It has been said before that the Coalition is helping out with 343, where the Coalition's so big that they are working on what we assume is the next chapter of Gears on Unreal Engine 5. And then they have a part of the studio helping out with Halo Infinite on 343. And then you look at the Bethesda acquisition, you've got these kind of quiet studios like Alpha Dog. There's Roundhouse, which I think Roundhouse will work on their own game. But these are quiet studios that supported Bethesda in general. And now they can work to, I mean, Bethesda Game Studios Austin was even originally a support studio for some time. And then they rose up and now they're the ones working on 76 primarily. And they've done a great job sort of handling it, bringing it back down to earth after a pretty rough launch. So the way Xbox has sort of formed their studios where they have so many employees, but also what they have inherited, I think is almost given them that support style studio. They just don't have a name. It's like, well, what can Bethesda Game Studios, who has 400 employees now, can we take like 30 of these people and put them on something, And so I think that's what's happening is you're seeing that consistently. We've even, once again, we've seen it within Bethesda where when they were acquired by Xbox, they highlighted, and I always like to bring this up because it's just a good sign of how things work, that Tango Gameworks made an enemy for Doom Eternal. And so you look at something like that, and I think it's already pretty established within Xbox. And while I would not be against it, just like Cog, I would not be against them having a remake type of studio that's just tackling these demanded, like a Conquer remake. I know people would lose their mind for a Banjo remake, especially.
Yeah.
I would love to see them do that stuff. But in a way, they're sort of already doing that. And I like that they handle it with care. We'll talk a little bit about Killer Instinct, but they're looking at bringing that back. And I like that they're not just rushing it because of the IP, trying to find the right match. So Absolutely. I'd rather them take their time and approach it with care in a time period where we're just seeing remakes, remasters just jam down our throats.
I'm with you, bro. I'm with you.
Let's go. Cody Richter, number 3. Hey, Dukes. Do you guys see a potential for Game Pass to lean into more game previews and early access titles? They already have a few titles as game previews with Grounded and Second Extinction, but what's the possibility they dive deeper into this concept? Last week, you guys, this was myself and Ben, discussed how some games launched day one on Game Pass in a broken or incomplete state. That was in reference to the status of Outriders, by the way, when it launched with inventory bugs. And then, of course, Dark Alliance being the more obvious one. Mm-hmm. What if they launch these games in an early access state on Game Pass and then pull them when the full game launches? They could allow players who participate in the early access to purchase the game at a discount when it launches or find other incentives for the participants. Curious to see where you stand on this idea. So, Cog, this is a discussion I had on my channel. I talked a little bit about on Defining Duke as well to pick Ben's brain on it. I want to know, where do you stand on the quality of, by the way, with Game Pass's library being so expansive, most of these are strong games that work fine. But where do you stand on the ones that are coming in little lackluster, a little less
Right.
functioning, we'll say.
Yeah, like you have some strong points on this, man. I was looking at the Twitter feed, bro. I was you in your bag with this one, man. I mean,
I'll
look,
take it.
I'm kind of with you on it, man, because it's like you want to be careful, man. You want to be, you know, Game Pass has a plethora of titles, right? A
Mhm.
lot of them are extremely quality. I'm not going to sit here and try to poo-poo that, but game preview. Not that I'm against it, but I think if we start to culture that as the way to kind of put games in a beta state, so to speak, and then it's up to the community to give feedback. I don't necessarily want to associate that with Game Pass. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? I want it to be this pristine brand, this pristine service that, you're getting these quality finished games. And I mean, I've been messing with Game Preview for a while. I remember what was it? The Long Dark was one of the first ones I used
Oh,
to
wow.
play.
Yeah.
I was like a little winter survival game. I liked it. I didn't have any problem giving feedback, but I almost want a separation as opposed to it being in Game Pass, because I do worry that as the service gets bigger, and I mean, I know Phil and the company have said that there is a individual process for everyone as far as getting into Game Pass, right?
Mhm.
But I just don't want it to be okay, we gonna drop our beta and our alphas in here, and
Right.
you guys test it out. So I think it's a perception thing, and that's where I stand on it. So I'm not really the biggest fan of making this that kind of a service. But
Yeah.
where you at? Where you at with this, man?
I agree with you, because here's the thing is with game preview, I'm going to sound a little cold hearted, but
Let's
I
go.
hope the audience understands where I'm coming from when I say that I think that this type of stuff should be accessible on one end. Like, I could play devil's advocate for myself is pretty much what's going to happen here. That's why I say I hope the audience understands with me, because I'm about to battle myself.
Let's go.
Because on one end, like, yeah, it makes sense. Throw it on Game Pass, get more eyes on there. You don't want people paying for early access jank that's broken. But at the same time, I almost want them to have their communities that do buy in, that are interested in just the core concept and want to see that develop. Because as you said, I feel like when Game Pass starts to become this game preview machine, like I said, where there's smoke, there's fire. We saw what happened with Square Enix. They're very pleased with what occurred with Outriders. And as much as I love Outriders, you already know the devs are taking notes saying, hey, what about our game? This thing may not be in the most complete state, but they took Outriders and Square Enix secured their bag like big time. So I'm just sitting there thinking to myself, like, all right, well, same thing here with Game Preview. If you start to see these games explode through Game Pass via Game Preview, I'm sure as a business model, Game Pass would love that, right? We want to be the conduit for that type of explosion, gets more eyes on our service. But at the same time, I feel if you start chucking in too many game preview titles in there, it starts to devalue the service, where I'm in agreement that I think there needs to be a upheld quality of things being complete, right? It doesn't mean everyone's got to be a home run. Everything's got to kill it 10 out of 10. Game Pass is going to have its ass games, whatever.
Yeah.
That's fine. That's fine. Just complete games. That's all I personally ask for. So I'm with you on that. And as for it's a tough line to walk. Obviously, nothing's going to change, because two of the games he mentioned are these sort of partnerships that Xbox has formed, and one of them coming from directly a first party studio, Obsidian, Grounded. So I get it. And if they're launching like Grounded, that's the other case, right? That's the other thing. If they're launching like Grounded, which came out and it was content light, but it worked fine.
Yes.
It worked perfectly fine. Then it's like, all right, like fine.
Yeah.
At that point, fine. But
I agree.
you could go really either way on this. I personally would like for them to steer away from it generally, because I don't think you're going to get as many Grounded as
I agree.
as most would expect. All right. Thank you for the write-in. Number 4, Hunter Murphy. Thank you for writing in as well. Hey, Matty and the Mysterious Stranger. As a diehard PlayStation fan, I find myself a weekly listener of this podcast because of the quality of the content. Thank you. Can really tell Matty gives it his all, and it's a treat to listen to. Thank you again. Wow. My question is, what do you think is the biggest each company can learn from each other? PlayStation does things way different from Xbox at times, and vice versa. Thanks for all the great content. Cog, I'm passing it off to you again, man. What can Xbox take notes from in the PlayStation handbook?
Shout out to Lord Hunter. Fantastic question.
Mm.
Yeah, this is something I've been kind of down on my sword with. All right. So from Microsoft, from the Xbox side, sometimes I get killed in the Xbox community for this one, but I'm going to die on it. I do feel, they had this great diversity of titles, right? But
Yeah.
I do want that AAA third person, over the shoulder kind of cinematic experience, right? Where, it really tells you the story and you start to develop the new protagonist for the new generation, right? So
Mm.
that's what I love about Sony. Like they're always introducing, you have the Jin Sakai's from Ghost of Tsushima, you have, Aloy, they have these characters. Obviously, God of War's been there already, but I'm talking about from a new IP standpoint,
Mm.
right? I want them to cultivate that as opposed to always relying on, I hate to say it, the burger, shaking the fries with the Gears, Forza, and the Halo, right? So that's one.
Yeah.
But they're doing a great job with diversity. So that I just want them to do that. And I know it's going to happen. They've got all these studios. We're hearing Compulsion might be one of them. So whenever you hear me say hashtag just one, that's the goal. I just want one of those PlayStation style games
Yeah.
on the platform. That's it. And not that they all have to be like that. And on the flip side, for PlayStation, I think I miss their their multiplayer focus. I think that's what Xbox does well. Everything is co-op and, community and sometimes, don't get me wrong, I like my cinematic experiences, but I feel like, remember the days of SOCOM and, you know what I mean? Like,
Oh, dude, absolutely.
Yeah, like, where's that at, right? Like,
Yeah.
I just want a little bit more on that so they don't just get redundant with their type of franchises. So that's where I'm at with both of them as far as learning from each other. But what about you, Matty?
I look at PlayStation first because my answer for them is much easier. I wish they experimented a lot more. And I'm not even attacking the general style of most of their exclusives, which are those third person, as you said, over the shoulder, open world style games. But I look at when they did PlayStation All Stars Battle Royale. I'm like, man, I'd love a sequel for that.
Fire.
Of course, I'm a big Sly Cooper fan. That's lying dead in its grave. Would love to see that come back, but maybe it could come back in a remake style. I believe it could. I think it would do well, but I also understand why they wouldn't want to because it's not the most business savvy thing. But I love a PlayStation that experiments. I look at my favorite era of PlayStation was really the Vita because it sort of challenged that because they were also transitioning into the PS4 at the time. So you saw them working on next gen newer stuff. You saw them working on PS3 games and then PS3 games they could squeeze onto the Vita and then like Vita exclusives. It was just a wide portfolio of different types of experiences you could have. And I really believe genuinely the Vita was the conduit for that. It was sort of the middleman between these two wonderful consoles. So for me, I missed that experimental PlayStation. I think they found I wonder if just after the big hack that they went through in 2011 and if there was just some type of financial strife within, because I feel like once they found their safety net and they felt comfortable, they sort of just wrote it out and they have continued to. And that's not a bad thing. We've gotten some amazing games because of it. But as someone who really enjoyed those variety of titles I've mentioned, plus more, Gravity Rush, another one. It's like, I would love to see them try these things, but they've sort of condensed more and more and appealed, I think, to a Western audience, which isn't really a bad thing. Because once again, we're getting these great games, but I would love to see them experiment a little bit harder.
I agree. One last point, you're on fire with that too. Another thing I want I want Xbox to do in reference to PlayStation is, I think PlayStation in the past did a really good job of sometimes the initial new IP doesn't knock it out the park on the first one, right? So I think what I like is that a lot of games, those type of games, get afforded a sequel. You see, like what happens with Uncharted. You see what's going on with different titles. So it's like the first one is okay, and then they have the foundation. So I think that, like, for example, I look at something like a Rise, Sun and Rome, right? And I'm like, you know what I mean? Like, as flawed as I call it the greatest 900p game I've ever seen, right? But like, as flawed as it was, and yes, I know it had the QTE. I get it. It wasn't perfection, but it was a great, hope for the future at the beginning of the Xbox One generation. And I look at titles like that, and I'm like, man, I wish that could be afforded a sequel kind of thing. And I think that's what PlayStation used to do early that I really like, and I want Microsoft to adopt that. But to your point with PlayStation, I do miss, the Japanese focus and having that diversity as well, you know what I'm saying, as opposed to kind of going more European and Western as they seem to be now.
You put me in my feels. You brought up Rise, Son of Rome. That game is...
Marius!
Oh my God, it's so
Centurions!
good.
Bro, when I saw that trailer at E3, I was like, how is this Xbox even doing this? Like, it was crazy, man.
I love that game, man. I really do, because I remember when I played it, I bought all the launch games for my Xbox One when it came out, and
me too.
I was thinking like, oh, Dead Rising 3 is going to be my game. Open world. I saw Mega Man references in it. I was like, yo, I'm all over this thing, man. I played a co-op with a buddy, but I was always going back to either Killer Instinct or Rise. And
Rise.
Rise, I beat twice, and it's just like, dude, that game is so good. And it's got the multiplayer horde mode.
Oh man,
Yeah, it's
bro,
underrated. Underrated. I got to go back to that just to mess around with it.
It's criminal. There's no FPS boost yet, man.
I know.
That needs the treatment, man.
Yeah, dude, there's so many games. There's a laundry list. Like I've been playing Dead Space lately, and like that, I was like, oh, surely this has FPS boost. And it doesn't. I was like, damn, man.
Don't worry. Shout out to Jason Rod and the team. We had them on. They're working. They got a lot of things going on.
Absolutely. And they're doing a great job.
Yeah.
Just, greedy Matty wants a little bit more.
Selfish Cog is with you.
For me, what could Xbox learn from PlayStation? I feel like my answer would be a little too obvious of course, taking notes from those exclusives. And I don't want to copy yours too much. But I'm gonna dip deeper into the past here. While PlayStation isn't doing this now, PlayStation did experiment with handhelds twice. And not that Xbox needs to start making tighter handheld games, but I think with where xCloud is going, that they should start looking into a device designed for portable gaming. And they've discussed it slightly like they call it a Game Pass device, but I'm not talking like a dongle. I'm talking almost a Vita, maybe something tighter than that. I get the idea. Everyone's got a phone, but for me personally, my phone is my communication device. It's my connection to business. So I don't typically use it ever for games. I don't have any games on my phone. I play enough games as is. I like the idea of having a device that's small, fits in my pocket, fits in a pocketbook, whatever, and you can pull it out whenever and play these games. Especially if there was a way to download them locally. That's getting galaxy brain, but
let's get it.
I would love to see the wizards of hardware at Microsoft figure something out with that. So for me, a little bit more obscure, but it's also, I don't want to walk right over Cog's answer and say the same thing. But
no, bro, you are fine. I would
love to see them take a crack at handheld. Really, I would. Of course, I'm biased. Game Boy Advance SP is one of my favorite systems of all time. So, as you know, I think I answered that on your show, right? So
you said that on ILP. Yeah, great idea. I mean, we've known in the past they've dipped their toe a few times with like prototypes, but it would be cool to have like a little dedicated device. But I wonder now with xCloud, maybe now that's just not in the cards anymore. But I'm with you. I wouldn't be opposed.
I certainly wouldn't. I love it. Number 5, and then we'll get into the news. This comes from BM. With Game Pass running on the iOS browser, pardon me, that's my protein shake, coming up to circumvent the App Store. What's stopping Microsoft from doing that with PS4's web browser? This was actually an immediate thought. When I saw them mentioning the browsers and stuff, I went, do they need permission? Like, can I go on xbox.com/play and sign in? And can I just start playing Xbox games on my PlayStation? I don't think you can, but I should have checked this out before this episode. I just didn't have the time to. But what do you make of this ability to circumvent the App Store? Do you think Xbox reaches over PlayStation? Is that even possible? I don't think it is. But I want to pick your mind on it. You might know more than I.
One would think the network infrastructure at Sony would not allow there would be some type of keywords or URL blocks to stop that from happening, because that would be wild. Yeah. I would say it's a funny question. I gotta think no, right? You gotta think. What you think, man? I gotta think.
I gotta think now. Yeah, I would love to see it. I think what we're talking about is if they bring it to PlayStation at all, this will be the way they do it. I don't think they will do a dedicated app, because then you start to have Xbox stuff branded all over your own console. It's through the browser and it's a sign-in thing. It's almost like you're having them take that extra step, but it's so that, when you sign in, you see the home menu and you're seeing everything in the PS Store. It's all PlayStation-centric. It's all PlayStation-centric. And then if you're in the cut and you know about Game Pass, you know how to access it. I think that's what they want to do, just almost like behind the curtains, just nice and quiet. I don't think they want to make it loud if they ever do it. They're just like, all right, we'll do it. We'll do it. But great question, honestly. Nothing more for me to say on that unless you got more.
Nah, I'm good.
All right, cool. Let's get into the news. We got 7 items today, so get comfortable. The first one has to do with PlayStation. As always, we like to talk about when significant moves happen on their end. This may be an Xbox show, but we got to talk about how does Microsoft respond? Is PlayStation in a better position? So on and so forth. So let's get into it. PlayStation has officially made its first acquisition since Insomniac Games, which occurred on February 10th, 2020. Not only that, but is merely their second studio acquisition in the last decade. Perhaps unsurprisingly, PlayStation has welcomed Housemarque to the first-party family. This is the team that introduced hit arcade titles like Super Stardust HD and Resogun to PlayStation audience until their first foray in AAA development with the recently released PlayStation 5 exclusive, Returnal. One noteworthy aspect is there isn't a price tag currently associated with this announcement like that of Insomniac Games, who went for $229 million. In a follow-up interview with Famitsu, Housemarque states that the acquisition talks began in 2020 and that their next project will go beyond that of Returnal. However, that's not all. It appears PlayStation has also acquired Bluepoint Games, another long-term partner of PlayStation's, which brought to life various remaster packages, such as the Uncharted Collection, Gravity Rush Remastered, or the Metal Gear Solid HD Collection. Since 2018, the team has developed a knack for creating impressive remakes, which we talked about earlier, such as Shadow of the Colossus and the PlayStation 5 launch exclusive, which may be coming to PS4, Demon's Souls remake. This acquisition slipped through the cracks when PlayStation uploaded a blog post announcing they had acquired Housemarque, but the accompanying image featured the PlayStation Studios logo with Bluepoint's logo to the side. It was quickly changed to Housemarque's, but it's hard to imagine this was an accident. Sony has been on a partnership spree as of late, teaming up with Discord, purchasing Evo, and even linking up with Jade Raymond to form Haven Studio, a studio in Montreal, as well as signing a brand new IP from Deviation Games. All right, first question comes from Jace McGarver for this segment here. Congrats on the new co-host. My question is about the competitor. How do you feel about Sony purchasing Housemarque and the potential of the Bluepoint tease? Obviously, Xbox is sitting well, and this isn't worrisome, but I wanted to get your take on the transaction. Thanks as always, Jace. Cog, I don't think PlayStation's getting enough credit for their aggression this year. A lot of people talking about PS4 and PS5 exclusives, which has dominated the conversation, sort of sucked the air of the room for them having an otherwise pretty exciting year. So what do you make of what I think is mostly unsurprising? They've brought Housemarque in. They're bringing in, it seems like Bluepoint. We'll treat that as more speculation until it's fully confirmed. But what do you think? What do you think of some of the rumbles on the PlayStation side of things?
Yeah, I mean, these are logical moves to me. These definitely make sense. Housemarque, the relationships there. Obviously, you remember the Rezo gun and all that stuff. Returnal was really doing well for them. We're hearing a lot of things, and then I believe they had an interview with Herman on GQ, which was funny. GQ's doing
GQ.
Yeah, GQ's in the gaming space. They out here.
All right.
So yeah, man, like it's just to see what they benefit from it, and I they talked about a future project and stuff like that. So that's pretty exciting. I mean, you have the established working relationship already. It kind of makes sense, and I think, from an acquisition standpoint, the way I look at it, it's like what we call it, it's cuffing season, man. You gotta snatch these joints up, because at the end of the day, Phil is out here, Tencent's out here. Yeah. Like the bags are out here for gaming. So if you play around and not to get too crazy with the relationship talk, but like if you play around and someone is wooing who you've been with, you got to be careful, bro. So at the end of the day, I think it's a great relationship. As far as the other moves, I love Evo. I love that. I know you went on your fighting games rant. Mm-hmm. I love that PlayStation's kind of keeping that alive, that they have that name association with that. The funny part of this is Bluepoint. I know. I think that's hilarious that kind of got, semi leaked out or whatever. Yeah. But again, if confirmed, right? Another relationship that makes sense. They've been working together in that vein of remasters and things like that. So overall, Sony's been aggressive. I think this is part of this next generation, so to speak, if you want to call it arms race and stuff. But you got to secure everything in house, because you never know. I mean, look at Insomniac. That went from Microsoft. These are situations you want to bolster that lineup in those titles. So what do you think, Matty?
Yeah, exactly that. They need to secure theirs, because you saw Xbox sort of backdoor them with the MLB and get the show on Game Pass day one. They knew that was a kick in the what, and then Insomniac was a partnership forming. They made the fantastic Sunset Overdrive, and I think they're better off with PlayStation. I should mention this because look at what they produce with them. They belong there, and I think that's an excellent fit. For me, what I really wanted to tap into, and I want to mention also that in the coming weeks, we're going to have Colin come on our first episode of Defining Duke together, Defining Duke Ultimate. And we're actually going to sit down and talk about kind of the trajectory both these companies are on, because what you're seeing is Xbox will form partnerships. Like when they got Bethesda, they did work together in some exclusive capacity. Like I think of Morrowind, Oblivion, I think of the status of some of the games that have come out for Xbox versus PlayStation. It's clear Bethesda maybe was more familiar or enjoyed the tools that Xbox offered more on the PlayStation side of things, and they were more quick to throw PlayStation under the bus. But beyond that, really, I look at what PlayStation does. They work with these companies for years and years and years, and then they snag them. And I think to myself, I wonder if this is an effective move. We don't know the price tag that Housemarque went for. I think that was a decision to keep it private, especially because I think after what occurred with Insomniac, where now everyone's going fleece, steal, because like look at what they've produced since they've joined them, right? Like, my God. And then you look at what Microsoft paid for Bethesda. I'm sure they're trying to keep that type of stuff quiet. But I'm wondering if these long-term partnerships almost try to create a perception of you need PlayStation, and it lowers their asking price to kind of, because like I said, one of the things that Housemarque talked about with Famitsu was saying how they're able to comfortably make really what they want to make. I'm paraphrasing, of course, but that was generally what they were getting at with the support of PlayStation, that they can now take the next step and people can really see what they're capable of in AAA development. Yes. And that's exciting because while I haven't played Returnal, I know a lot of people have enjoyed it. They've liked the sort of combination of arcadey, bullet hell-like gameplay in a AAA space, and this really new experiment for the team where they've gone from Resogun to this. I mean, even if it was a stumble, it's impressive what they've accomplished. Right. And so I look at this and think, I think I love how they've just developed these partnerships and then they buy them. But it does, I do find it interesting that one of the weird counterpoints consistently, I can't speak to Housemarque because I don't know their history, but I know Bluepoint was just working for everybody. And a lot of people say like PlayStation develops in-house talent, right? They draft the Rook, they develop them, and it's like, no, PlayStation buys people too. They do. And it's fine. It's fine, but it's like, man. But they do work with them extensively, which I think is, it makes it where this was less of a bang for people. It was more of and I think this is how acquisitions should work. It's like, oh, okay, right. Makes sense, right? Like,
no, absolutely. And to double down on what you said, I mean, I think sometimes gamers have this like misconception, like buying a studio is bad for the industry. And the way I look at it, is that like, I'm a fan of games, so I want games to exist, especially from beloved studios. The saddest thing is when it's a beloved studio of game, and you're like, yo, they didn't do well, they closed down. I'm still in my feelings over the High Moon Transformers game. Like we talk like there's certain games where you're like, damn, I wish it did. So you look at, everything is a risk proposition, and to me, I'm never going to be opposed for like stability of a studio, as long as their culture is allowed to remain intact, and they able to do what they want to do. I'm all about it. So, again, when you hear about the Housemarque, you hear about the room at Bluepoint, you hear the stories from Xbox Game Studios, and they're saying, hey, we're still allowed to do what we want to do, but now we have more resources and things like that. I'm all about, studios thriving and having the chance to be financially secure. So that's where I'm at. Now, does every move work? No, but I'm about them existing. You know what I mean? Moving forward. So
I agree. I think a lesson learned that people often forget, and they'll probably forget even more because it looks like the IP is coming back, according to reports, is what happened with Visceral Games. What happened with Pandemic Studios. At least for me, Pandemic was one of my favorite developers growing up. For those who don't know, the original 2 Battlefront games, they brought us Lord of the Rings Conquest, The Saboteur, Mercenaries. Like, they brought these amazing series. Visceral Games, best known for Dead Space 1, 2, and 3. I mean, these incredible studios that work on such amazing projects, and they get shut down. And I don't forget that stuff. Like, I still remember I was on vacation. I was in Florida, and I saw Visceral got shut down. I made a video on the spot. So I was like, are you kidding me? Wow. So I'm all in favor of, not that, for example, Bluepoint or Housemarque were on the chopping block, but I'm of the mindset as well that, as long as these studios can maintain a sense of culture that they've established, and it's more like, hey, you're our guy for the funds, not to tell us what to do specifically, then I'm about that. That's why people get excited about Xbox acquisitions, because they seem to establish, you operate independently. We will just write you the check if you need it.
Preach.
And I think that's really what it's all coming down to. And especially, you're going to see more and more studios get bought up because I think the best way to put it is cuffing season, right? And it's like, dude, go get your money, right? Like everyone's looking saying, wow, we've made these games independently for 10, 20 years, and we can go sell for like 3 times our price right now to secure our future. And these companies are becoming less invasive. I mean, it's hard to argue against. It really is. So
it's a risky business, man. There's no guarantees. Definitely volatile.
Yeah, and it's why that's why you really want to sell your company if you can. I think some of these guys like to team up for exclusivity because you mitigate that risk. You keep your employees. I think that's really not what it's about, but that's probably the goal for a lot of studios. Some want to remain independent and do their own thing, and I respect the hell out of that, right?
Absolutely.
You see Techland trying to do that, and Bethesda did that, Square Enix did that, Ubisoft. I respect the tenacity to remain independent, but I don't blame some of these smaller teams like a Housemarque or Bluepoint for saying like, hey, let's join them up.
Absolutely.
Next question comes from Frank Ortiz. Sorry. What up, Matty and new co-host? With Sony finally acquiring Housemarque and possibly Bluepoint on a random Tuesday of all times, I was wondering when Phil is going to announce his next acquisition. Crytek would be my ideal guess. There are many rumors going around with a Crysis reboot that is going to push current hardware to its limits. My conspiracy theory is that Phil has already acquired them and will unveil the Crysis reboot at next year's E3 along with the acquisition. Now, here's the thing. We've all learned a lesson collectively with the acquisition of Bethesda is that there is legal stuff that would go into it where we would know. So there's no under the radar, we got them kind of thing. At least I don't think. I mean, then again, with 2018 on E3, they hit the stage and announced 5 acquisitions, but that was wild. That's still, yes. I always remember that.
Yes.
But of course, we got to go to this end of the conversation. Xbox has said it themselves that they're looking at other studios. We're seeing them form third-party partnerships with like Avalanche. Rumor is they're also doing it with IO Interactive. Mm-hmm. Gotta ask you, Cog, do they announce something this year? Do you think that lightning strikes twice?
I mean, the rumblings prior to E3 were very high. We saw like dragon emojis and typhoons and all type of stuff going on. So, I think for me, one of the biggest surprises of the Microsoft Bethesda E3 showcase was that there was not one announced, right? So, I think, I think we get one. I still think we get one. I think that they're still in that acquisition phase. There's still a lot of things that make sense. We got to see what's going on with WB as far as their properties. We've heard the names, the IOs, the Avalanche, things like that. The Crytek thing is kind of interesting to me. We already bloviated about Rise, right? So it's like, I think I'm gonna be honest. Like selfishly, I want the engine. Whatever that engine is doing, bro, I want the engine, man. That Cry engine looks crazy. And again, we were talking about, Rise, greatest 900p game I've ever seen. You know what I mean? And to me, it worked wonders with technology that, let's be honest, that was a Xbox One that was running on 15% utilizing Kinect still, kind of thing. And they would have eke out that level of performance. So from an engine standpoint and a couple of IPs, it would be interesting to see. But and I'm going to hold hope, man. I'm a Sega kid. I'm always going to hold hope for that one magical day, because that to me, they won. They won E3, whatever award show. If that announcement happens, Matty, they won. I'm in. They could do no wrong. Phil is the greatest. I'll give King an additional title, Phil Dominus Maximus, whatever he wants to call Phil after that. He will get every Roman title known to man. So that's why I'm at. But I do think it'll probably be one or two and more, not on that bigger scale, but I do think they're cooking. I think it makes sense. Game Pass has to thrive. You need stuff in it. But what's going on with you? What you think?
Yeah, I think Crytek would be so interesting, just because you get the Cry engine, then you have id Tech, then you have like Slipstream, which is looking pretty strong. I mean, they got some good stuff under the hood if you get Crytek as well. I mean, there's a lot that can happen there. A lot of people immediately went, oh, what happens if you do a Halo spinoff on id Tech? And then if you got CryEngine there, what opportunities open up there as well with something so beautiful on a graphical level? And Microsoft always loves to buy and experiment with tech. So I feel like that's a pretty a possible one. Because I was incorrect. I think I corrected myself in a video and in a podcast, but I know I had previously dismissed it. It was a video. I dismissed that Crytek would be going anywhere. And then I saw Jez Corden actually said that I may have spoke too soon. It's might happen. So
Okay.
we'll see, of course.
Mhm.
But yeah, there's just too many studios that seem up for sale. I think Warner Bros. Is the one that's the one that'll probably take the longest. Like, I wouldn't be
Yes.
surprised if that was a 2023, 2022 Bethesda style acquisition, because the Bethesda one it began in October or September of 2018, and we didn't
Mhm.
get it until September of 2020. So there was a lot that went between those two companies, where I feel something on a more individual level, like a Crytek or IO Interactive, is a lot easier for Xbox. But I mean, I think the ones that I think they might start taking the PlayStation round. So, something along the lines of, hey, we're going to team up with Avalanche. We're going to do this Project Dragon or not Dragon. Sorry. They were the ones doing Typhoon.
Yes.
And then we're going to roll them in as a first
Mhm.
party. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, because they want to hit those games every quarter. And I was saying the only way you can do that is by just power of numbers. Then you will know, no matter what happens with development, that someone will be there to fill that gap.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. So it'll be an interesting rest of the year. I think with EXO 2021, whatever they're going to call it, maybe that happens this year with
Mhm.
things loosening up. That maybe that's a place they announce it, because we know that's where they've announced previous acquisitions like Obsidian and Exile. So
Mhm.
I would be very keen to see them do something there. I think the expectations be quite high.
Absolutely.
So thank you both Jace and Frank for your write-ins, and those are some of our thoughts on what's going on with PlayStation. Now, updates on the Halo Infinite front. The first season of content for the game's free-to-play multiplayer component has been announced. In a post on Halo's Waypoint, 343's head of creative, Joe Staten, couldn't share much outside of the following. Quote, "We picked Heroes of Reach as a seasonal theme for very specific reasons. Reach has a rich history. It's a key location for Spartans of old and a focal point for a new generation of Spartans preparing to wrestle with the perils and mysteries of a galaxy that has fundamentally changed after the events of Halo 5. In other news, Phil Spencer had more to share on the vague release window given to Halo Infinite in a showcase chock full of games with set dates. When guesting on the Drop Frames podcast, Phil said the following, quote, "We know kind of our range in a 3 to 4 week range. We don't have the exact day. There's some other things with some other game timing that we're trying to look at. We'll have a better clarity over the summer, but this isn't a month's thing. This is just down to a few weeks," end quote. Phil then added, quote, "Instead of picking this date and having it move by a week, which at this point would feel like a fail, we don't want to do that. Let's wait until we're really solid on what the date is," end quote. He concludes in stating that 343 Industries is very committed to the holiday. So the first part, I personally don't have much to touch on there, but I also wanted to direct the conversation to you with, are you eased a little bit with some of Phil's comments, where when I saw everything around it getting a date, and then you saw the holiday 2021 for Halo, I went, oh no, might not make it out this year. I don't know.
Uh-oh.
Does what Phil said here, it seems like they're taking a look at probably Call of Duty. Does this line up, and do you think, like, okay, I think they're
Mhm.
going to release it this year, and do you have faith in that?
Yeah. I'm with you. I mean, this is a fun debate on Iron Lord's podcast. It's me and Addict versus Sov and King, and they're of the mindset, you just drop it whenever because it's Halo, right? And I get it,
I'm the same way, to be
you know.
honest.
Okay, so see you there.
Yeah.
See, now we're the opposite side, because the only thing I say is this, like, you know, we know the history. We know how big this game is, and I get it. I just want it to breathe. I just don't want it to be a situation like a Titanfall 2 and a
Right.
Battlefield, where they kind of cannibalize. So, in my opinion, when I see Phil's comments, to me, this is gamesmanship. The game is pretty much done. They're gonna afford them, the bug fixes and development, and just making sure they get it across the finish line. But I'm pretty confident they know what they want to do already. It
Right.
just may be a situation where they want to look at the climate, look at what else is going on. We
Mm-hmm.
also know Forza's in that November spot, which is kind of untypical as well, right?
Mm-hmm.
You got the Halo anniversary. I think there's a lot of fact. I honestly think it's slightly fluid within a small window. I think they do kind of know what they want to do, the window where it be complete, but they just want to get it out. And the last point I'll make is got to plug a little bit. ILP, we had Patrick Wren, multiplayer designer on for 343. And I was even asked, because I was worried. I was like, well, maybe they still got things they got to do. And, I was like, is things fluid? He's like, no. It's done. He's like, it's a matter of, bug testing, polish, that kind of thing.
Right.
And because I basically asked the question like, are we still, feature creep? Is there still a chance things can be put in? And he was like, no, they're done. So I think they're ready to rock. It's just a matter of gamesmanship, positioning, and waiting for big COD to announce that release date. So what you think? You ain't scared, Matty? You ain't scared of big COD out here? You with King and Saul? Where you at with this?
Yeah, so the thing is, like, I look at the free-to-play component, and that's the difference maker. If we're talking 60.
Okay.
If we're talking 60, 70, like, yeah, wait for COD. But I just feel like and maybe I'm getting a little overconfident. This is why I'm not running what's going on at Xbox.
Your chest out. Let's
right?
go.
Exactly, because I'm sitting there thinking, dude, we're free. Halo's rocking and rolling. People are actually excited. It looks great. Like, we'll dominate COD. Like, we'll go up against COD. And I'm just like, I respect that. I was ready for that level of tenacity. I think they are being smart. I think almost, I don't know if they're looking at COD and saying we want to strike ahead of them or after them. That's what I'm wondering is because you got Horizon, like you said, in that very particular position in the early part of November. COD is typically a November launch. Let's say that hits like November 15th or somewhere in that area. Yeah. It's like, now do you come before that and do you interrupt anything that happens with Forza and distract from Forza? So you have to come after Forza, I would imagine. I could be, once again, totally wrong here. You obviously, I don't think, want to stomp over Age of Empires either. I don't know if Halo could just slip out in October.
And then Battlefield's October too, bro.
Exactly, right? So does Battlefield stop you? Does Battlefield, we've heard murmurs, but nothing concrete. But it's like, do they look at, hey, let's get Battlefield on Game Pass day one, like a late acquisition, and then that's our shooter for October, and then you got Halo for November. I mean, there's a lot of interesting pieces on the chessboard that I'm just throwing out there and seeing what sticks to the wall, because I think ultimately you go late November with this game. I would not be remotely surprised with that. Come after everything's been done. You give Forza its window. Forza has its own audience. I don't think Forza and Halo really overlap. And I'm just thinking from an exclusivity standpoint, I'm thinking of our audience who's interested in all these games as well. And I know that's a much smaller percentage, but I'm just thinking in general, like there are people who do have that overlap and interest in just generally every Xbox exclusive and just seeing what it's all about. So yeah, I really teeter back and forth on this, but I feel like they should have the confidence to go up against it because its release, the type of game it is totally different. But then again, they are going to sell the campaign and that's going to evolve. So you have to be strategic with one end more than the other is probably what's occurring here that I'm not accounting for.
Bro, I think this is one of the most curious things. I'm very intrigued by this. It's so many factors. You laid it out perfectly. You got October, you got, Age, you got Battlefield, November, obviously, Call of Duty, Forza. There's so many. When this thing shakes out, I am dying to know how it all aligns because this is a fun one. This is a fun. I want to see what their mindset is moving forward. And the last point is, especially in relationship to Horizon 5, how do they play that out? You know what I mean?
I agree, man. The way it's going to shake out is going to be phenomenal because you have the chance to say like, oh, Xbox has a ton of games. Like maybe they release Halo on November 11th and then Forza on I think it's the 15th or something like that. Actually, no, that's the anniversary. I'm mixing up dates. But point being is, I just think it's actually exciting to see. Maybe Xbox is going to have a lot of games crammed into one window, and some people don't think that's possible because you look at other companies how they operate. And I go, hey, Xbox, man, they need some exclusives. They need some real pedal to the metal action for a couple of weeks. We're actually kind of seeing that heading into July with some indies. I was looking at the indie schedule and there was like Chris Tales and Death's Door and The Ascent. And I'm like, man, they're getting some really good independent games there exclusively or day one on Game Pass, back to back to back. No one's really talking about it. So
that's a good point.
Just keep up the production here and we'll be just fine, I think.
The deluge is coming.
Yeah. But I think what you added with your interview with, I forgot what his name was.
Patrick Wren. He was the multiplayer designer for 3 for 3.
I think that adds a really good element to the conversation of knowing, they're not trying to slip in more features because that would extend the development time. And if they are just polishing for the next 5 months, that's a very encouraging sign. Very encouraging sign. Who knows? Did he ever end up saying, sorry, I didn't listen, but did he ever say when they completed the game?
He didn't say when. He just said they were, and then we talked about also the beta. They didn't do that. They're gonna get that to us as far as the multiplayer beta. But yeah, he just said that because we were trying to, our chat was like, is assassinations in, is this in, and certain things he didn't want to speak to.
Mm-hmm.
So I said, okay, that's why I said, instead of asking him a bunch of things he can't answer, are we set in stone at this point, or are there still things kind of? And he said, no, we are locked in, set in stone. What you're going to get, and then we're just down in the refining and the polishing phase.
Okay, that definitely grows confidence in the title for sure. Then, and it explains why it's such a sore thumb when you really look at it when they like lay out the whole set of pictures, but that's fine. During that same Dropped Frames podcast, this is number 3. Phil Spencer opened up on the future of an Xbox One. I've tied my words together here. Xbox One launch exclusive that many hold near and dear to their hearts. That is the fighting game Killer Instinct, and Phil has said there is a strong desire to get another one done. Quote, I will just say, Xbox Game Studios head Matt Booty and I have discussed many times Killer Instinct and where we would like to go with it, and it's not out of our minds that, and he pauses, it might be out of our minds, but it's in our hearts and in our mind that we want to do something with Killer Instinct, end quote. Phil continues, quote, it's about finding the right team and the right opportunity, but it is not due to any lack of desire or on our part that we're not doing more with Killer Instinct because we love the franchise and the community response, end quote. You a Killer Instinct guy, Cog?
I am not. I'm sorry. I'm a Tekken dude.
Dude, let's go. All right,
cool. Yeah, that's my thing. But look, I understand the importance of this, man. It was so well received. The Killer Instinct community, absolutely love it. So it does. I'm a fighting game guy, though. So it does bother me that Killer Instinct hasn't been revived yet. We're not talking about the next iteration. I like that Phil's mentioning it, in the sense that they are looking, for a team. I want to actually ask you a question in reference to the initial development studio that had it prior. Like, I guess my question is, what's the status? Like, why aren't they allowed to continue, or they would just kind of, what's the status of that?
It's actually kind of strange. Let me just double check the name real quick, just to make sure, and then I will continue on. Okay, so Double Helix,
yes,
was the original developer for Killer Instinct. And then they transitioned to Iron Galaxy. And then Double Helix, I'm looking right now, was acquired by Amazon.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And so really what happened was Amazon got ahead of Microsoft.
Gotcha.
And got them and
cuffing season. You see what
really
we're talking about?
This is like 2018. But yeah, they relinquished Killer Instinct to Iron Galaxy. And then Iron Galaxy has expressed a desire to do a second one. But I don't know.
But it ain't happening.
No, that's the thing that what sucks is developers will put that out there saying, to get the conversation started, like, hey, we want to do this and show that the crowd wants it. One really prominent example in my personal community is Obsidian has said since 2014 on multiple occasions, we do another Fallout. Like, here's what we do. We do New Orleans. They said, like, they've gone over it before. They've talked on it. It's exciting. Bethesda's never jumped at it, though. So just because one side expresses a desire doesn't mean the other wants to do it. And
correct.
Not that Xbox is sitting there going, well, no, you're bad. I don't think it's anything about the quality of work that Iron Galaxy did. I look at it from a standpoint, we're talking acquisitions, Cog, and I was thinking to myself, man, Warner Bros. What if they get rid of NetherRealm? You don't take the IP with you. You don't take Mortal Kombat, but you take NetherRealm, and I said you have them make a Killer Instinct game. I mean, what does that look like? I don't think the type of fighter that NetherRealm makes meshes with the type of fighter that the Killer Instinct reboot really was.
Right.
But I still think that NetherRealm is a competent enough studio to make a very good fighting game. Where that was my Galaxy Brain plan. Despite all of that, fighting games are such a dying breed almost, it feels like. And I would love to see, PlayStation's invested in Evo, but I would love to see PlayStation invest in their exclusive fighters, do another, battle royale kind of game with all the new PlayStation faces. I'd love to see Xbox do another Killer Instinct game. Just because out of all the genres across gaming, I feel like fighting games are the ones that are hanging back on some of these age-old things, right? Like,
yes,
I say this all due respect. I think Smash probably does it the best. Like, they're like, you get a new character, you get new stage, you get new music, new spirits, new things to do when you buy that character. You don't just spend like $8 and get one new character and that's it. Which I think just the monetization and the approach to extended content for these fighting games is it just feels lackluster in comparison. And it's because, of course, fighting games need to be finely tuned. You don't want to throw out these busted, broken characters.
Balance,
just destroying the balance of the game, ruining the online ecosystem, hurting players' times with the experience. But there's got to be a way. There's got to be a team out there that finds a way, is what I'm saying, where you can sort of unlock what fighting games were all about for many years. Where what happens is they're popular for about a week, and then it's just the Evo. It's like, all right, well, we'll see you with the tournaments. Like, that's when I'll tune in, and they're fun to watch, but I don't see many people talking about them, buying them. And if you need just proof of that, go look at any of the recent Game Awards listings for fighting games, and they use these re-releases. They use these, like, they don't even. I'm pretty sure one of the years there was like Mortal Kombat 11 Ultimate or something like that released the same year as a brand new fighting game from Arc System that was really good. And it was Grand Blue Fantasy Versus.
Yes.
And I'm pretty sure, I'll have to double check, but I'm pretty sure Mortal Kombat 1, I'm like, how is that possible? Like, this isn't even new from this year.
Yeah.
And it's just a mess. So I would love to see both sides really start investing in fighting games in a long
1,000% with you, bro. Sorry to cut you, but
no, you're good.
It's like, man, it's such a dying genre. It's a genre that's near and dear to me, and I'm with, like, you stole my nether realm, and I was in the same bag. Like, they've got the experience, they've got the chops. Obviously, Killer Instinct is a different fighting game, but I would have confidence in them to retain the spirit of what that fighting game is, right? And they've got that pedigree. And think about like potential crossovers, right? Like, you know what I'm saying? They NetherRealm did it when it was a DC and MK for a little bit, kind of thing. So, I'm with you, man. I don't want this genre to die. I want a fresh life. And as much as I'm a Tekken fan, I wasn't a fan of the monetization model, the way they handle it. I mean, added a new character, but I always felt like I miss the days of, when you had a character and then you have this new character and then you do like the campaign version for that character. So you get kind of ingratiated into the character's story and background. And I think now it's like
kind of route, right? Yeah. That's what they did. Yeah.
You know what I mean? So that's for me. Like, now it's just like, all right, new guy. All right, where's the backstory? And where's the, you know what I'm saying? I think Smash is probably the better way of doing it right now currently, but I still think it's improvement. I miss the days. Yeah. Again, I would play Tekken and a new character come out and I'd play the campaign version, like the arcade, and then you get the little cinematic ending. And I always felt that connected me to it. So they still have to refine the model because I just don't want it to be new character, new meta, Evo, done.
Yeah, exactly. It's too rinse and repeat. And there's been mumblings of Tekken Cross Street Fighter where you'd have the Street Fighter characters in the Tekken engine.
Yeah. I mean, Harada shot it down, though.
Yeah. Oh, he did? He did?
Yeah, Harada shot that all the way. He is like, look, they had a couple of chances when I got a chance to meet him. Great guy. They had a couple of chances with it in development. They just couldn't figure it out. They ended up doing the Akuma canon in Tekken 7 as like a thing. He still, because now they're kind of killing him. Like, what do you mean it's dead? So now he's like backtracking a little bit. It's not completely dead, but no plans for right now. It looks, for all intents and purposes, like it ain't happening.
Yeah, that's unfortunate because we talked about how fighters feel different. Like Killer Instinct feels a particular way compared to Injustice 2 to Dragon Ball FighterZ. And Street Fighter was a game that I personally picked up and was in that bin of fighters where I just legitimately did not vibe with it. I just, like, the way combos were doled out. A lot of it's about damage output too. Damage output really is hit or miss for me. That's why I didn't like Guilty Gear. Guilty Gear is a great fighting series, but originally, up until Strive, which just came out this year, Guilty Gear always had you do like these 9-hit combos and you take like an eighth of their health bar. And I'm sitting there going, man, it's high skill, no reward. This is brutal out here. So yeah, with Street Fighter, I felt similar in that way where there's a fine, it's like got to scratch a very particular edge. And maybe that's why this scene for fighting games hasn't grown as much. But yeah, just
I
a
hear
lot
you.
of up in the air there. And if that Capcom leak is to be believed, which has been accurate so far, we'll be getting a Street Fighter 6 at least. So maybe
Okay.
that'll drive with me a little bit more.
Yeah, a little shot in the arm. See how it go.
Number 4, in a short interview by The Telegraph with Todd Howard, he provided a bit more insight on the status of the highly anticipated Elder Scrolls 6. Quote, the new technology for Starfield, Creation Engine 2, is sort of built for both. It's like a new tech base. The vast majority of the development, there's actually a typo. This is interesting. So I copy and pasted this whole quote here from the Telegraph, and they actually, it was, I fixed a bunch of typos and I missed one that was also there. So this is, wow. Okay, it says the vast majority of our development work is on Starfield right now, but everybody works on everything, so the project's kind of intertwined. It's a good thing. It's good to think of the Elder Scrolls 6 as still being in a design phase, but we're checking the tech. Is this going to handle the things we want to do in that game? Every game will have some new suites of technology, so Elder Scrolls 6 will have some additions onto the Creation Engine 2 that the game is going to require. Todd also dipped his toes into talking about Indiana Jones, which is coming from Machine Games, and a title he'll be serving as executive producer on. Quote, I think I originally pitched to George Lucas in 2009, and I've been trying to find a way to make that since. And I think the work Machine Games have done, they're just phenomenal developers and storytellers. And when I started talking to them about it, it was a good fit. We got the opportunity to talk to Lucas and Disney about it, and they were super excited. I really like Indiana Jones, but I never thought I'd have the opportunity to make a game. And you'll hear about that more in the future, but the team at Machine Games are the best team in the world to pull off this game, and they're doing a phenomenal job. It's a little bit of lip service there, Cog, but ultimately,
home team.
What do you think about the Indiana Jones game? Of course, Creation Engine 2 being used for Elder Scrolls 6. We haven't seen Creation Engine 2 really in action outside of some in-game cinematics, but
right.
What do you think of Bethesda getting a little more tech-focused as well? I mean, there's a lot to really parse through here.
Yeah, I like it. I like it, man. I'm about the tech. I'm about the new engines, man. Let's, look, Bethesda's, I mean, their history is just, the franchises, the iconic names, they're great. And the only, if you want to say Achilles heel or mine, we want to pick is always been, okay, well, maybe some things from a bug standpoint, graphical fidelity, maybe, not always the best looking games. They're always great. Don't get me wrong. I don't want to take anything away from them, but I'm always excited when I hear about that tech. And I remember when we saw the Starfield thing, and people were like, yo, that's cinematic CG. And they were like, oh no, that was all in engine. So I was like, okay. So, to see Starfield has that foundation with Creation Engine 2. And I just like to see them push forward and push boundaries with tech. And if Elder Scrolls 6 is using that, let's go. Let's see what you can do, man. Let's push the envelope. I want to see them. To me, there's nothing more exciting than Bethesda kind of unleashed, now with Microsoft backing, and you got Todd Howard with tech, and it's like, let's go, let's go all the way with it. Like I'm with it, man. So as far as the second part with the Machine Games thing, we know the history with them. Great first person. I believe those who guys did was it Wolfenstein? Right?
Yes,
they did it. Yeah. Those games are fast paced, 60. Balls to the wall, feeling it. So I'm curious to see what they do with that. I'm curious to see the Indiana Jones franchise, how that works. And anything tech and new engine stuff, Cog is in. So I'm about it. I'm dying to know how this translates into graphical fidelity for the studio. But what about you?
For Elder Scrolls 6, I've said for a while that I believe this is going to be. You see in Skyrim, and I know this may sound like a reach, but you see in Skyrim they try to do these bigger battles with the Civil War that's transpiring in there, and it's there, it happens, and I'm just thinking.
I don't hear the enthusiasm, man.
Yeah, it's very 2011, right?
Yeah.
Especially back then, it's good for what it was, right?
Yes.
Nowadays, you look at it and you go, okay, this could be more, and I've always had the prediction that you look at Elder Scrolls Online and they have these, they have Cyrodiil PvP where there's tons of big battles occurring and players are at war with each other. And I think with the way the plot is developing, if you will, for Elder Scrolls 6, that there is going to be some type of war. You are going to be involved in that war. And I think one of the things that they're considering is how do we do these big scale battles in this open world while everything else is going on. So that's one of the things that I imagine they're tapping into. They also introduced a lot of the Radiant quest line tech with Skyrim. And they tried to evolve that a little bit more with Fallout 4 with the, very popular settlement needs your help. Just that incidental meme. So I got to talk to John, who does the voice work for him, and he's a phenomenal guy. Nice. He's very into the meme too, which he adored. And I think that's maybe how they're looking to, if I could speculate a little bit, that's how I think maybe they could carry it forward. But otherwise, from what we saw with the Starfield trailer, I feel pretty good about things because a lot of people try to take away from it. But you said it, that CGI, they're like, oh, come on, that showed us nothing. Bro. And then when you find out it's in game, people go, bro, whoa.
Sandwich was looking real.
Yeah, right. It really was. It really was, man. That shit looked good.
Facts. Let's go.
And so, I'm just, you've never said that about an Elder or any type of game from Bethesda Game Studios. They've been appreciated for other things. So obviously what we saw in that trailer probably won't represent what the actual game will look like. But hey, if the cutscenes look that good, I mean, that is a step forward for sure. Can already tell the animation work looked a lot cleaner, which is something that Bethesda struggled with for many years. When you look at Fallout 3 and the way, if you were like running and then you start going diagonal, they wouldn't have an animation for running diagonal. You would just glide along the ground. Left to right or right to left, and you'd sort of just go up. It's just, and then Skyrim, you would shift your body, but your head would
move always so
you're like running.
I know what you mean.
It's just the most wild shit. So they get a little more credit than others for simple steps forward, but I'm excited to see them sort of wash that away, hopefully. On the Indiana Jones side of things,
what you think about that?
I'm actually pretty excited for this game just because I think it's a really big shakeup. I think new, an IP that we haven't really seen in video games for some time, coming from I know Todd's really saying like, oh, they got this phenomenal job. We haven't seen anything, so of course we can't say that, but I would not associate them with this type of game at all. Same. Because we don't know what it's going to be. It's going to be first person. That'd be kind of interesting, but I feel like you connect with Indiana Jones more, and it feels more like you're playing an Indiana Jones game if it's in third person.
I'm with you.
I mean, there's just so much there. We know it looks like it's going to be set in Rome or something like that, based off what we saw in the art in the trailer. But these guys are known for these rip roaring, bloody games, and now they're making what could be a pretty lighthearted romp with Indiana Jones, and it's going to be a big change of pace. Puzzles are going to probably be involved, something that Wolfenstein never sniffed. And I'm just just wondering how this game's going to go, man. I mean, I'm excited for it, but it's a curious pick in development. I really do think so. So I'm hoping that this just means someone on their team is, very passionate about it.
I agree. Very interesting choice, intriguing choice.
Yeah, right. Yeah. So I'm not fully sold on. I, by the way, think Wolfenstein 1 and 2 are fantastic. Yes. So I'm sold on their quality level. I know some people have some gripes with Wolfenstein 2 and, of course, Youngblood. But I'm not really concerned about their quality. It's just about the fit here. But
the fit, yep, I agree.
They're creatives. They're probably inspired to be working on something like this, and I'm sure it won't be the last with Sea of Thieves teaming up with Disney, and then you got this here. I'm sure this won't be the last Lucasfilm thing we see with Xbox. Number 5. Well, Xbox said after the E3 showcase that it would be arriving soon. Nobody knew when. As you were listening to this, Xbox Cloud Gaming is available to all Xbox Game Pass Ultimate members with Windows 10 PCs and Apple phones or tablets via the browser across 22 countries. Additionally, Xbox Cloud Gaming is now powered by custom Xbox Series X hardware, which allows streaming at 1080p and up to 60 FPS. Going forward, the team says in an Xbox Wire post that they will continue to innovate and add more features to enhance the cloud gaming experience. Have you had a chance to try this out, Cog?
Yes. So I've done now I haven't tested since they've switched over to Series X, which is very recently. They've now officially announced it. But I use the tech a lot. I'm the guy that I got my phone and my Razer Kishi. I'm at the doctor's office. And I look for it, but I gotta wait an hour. Oh, okay, cool. You know what I'm saying? Like I'm that dude. Yeah, I'll be like, oh, cool. Like now I look forward to waiting. You know what I'm saying? So, I messed around and I really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed it. That, again, that was the only issue I had was that, again, it was the Xbox One S server blades, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if I'm playing a game, like for example, I'm a big Destiny guy, so I'll play Destiny. I'm playing that 30 frames version and stuff like that. But from a latency standpoint and things like that, everything was really playable. So now the reports are coming out. You're seeing the Series X blades in the wild. I'm seeing my friends, Dr. Cobra, a couple of people, 120 frames on the Rainbow Six Siege. And,
Wow.
you're seeing all this and people are really saying it is a dramatic difference. And I know for a fact it is because during the time before the server blade transition, I actually was using the remote play, almost like a remote play Vita version of the service, where I was going into, from the doctor's office, going into my personal Series X, which had the NVMe, which had the 60 frames, and I'm like, this is what I'm talking about. The loading times is fast, everything is good. So I could already imagine just that in itself is going to make the experience more transformative. And the part that I think people are also losing sight of, because I think as much as people clown Stadia, the tech was good from an in-browser standpoint. And like you, Matty, I know you're not Mr. I'm going to be on the phone, right? I know that's not you. I got it, right? But there are going to be a subset of people where, you just plug in that URL, you go into your browser and you're able to play it full screen. And with Series X, with the higher frame rates, the higher fidelity, that's going to be a viable option for some people. And again, option, and for regions that, again, might not be console heavy, this is something that people are going to look into. You throw Game Pass in it. And the last point I'll say is, besides the tablets, the browsers, another underrated thing I think people have to look out for is the TV game, because we know these smart TVs are out here. It's up to Microsoft to market it. It's up to Microsoft to say, hey, here's the Xbox Game Pass app, boom, for the $1, whatever, you get in, you get to try all these games, you get people in, you give them the carrot, right? You let them get a taste, and then boom, now you got them in. So I think that's the long-term play, for them to get that group of gamers that would never buy into an Xbox console or the ecosystem and now get into these different methods. But what do you think, man, about this whole announcement?
I was really excited because I had not gotten into any of the testing for it. I never got any emails about being invited into it. So this is my first ever time this week messing with it. So I apologize if my reaction to the audience maybe seems a little delayed, or it's like, why is he surprised about this? I've kind of not kept my ear close to the ground on it because I was very excited just to try it and lay my hands on it and go in as blind as possible. Obviously, you had like a general expectation, but I was thinking, for me, my home internet, it's decent. It's not bad. We got Optimum. We got kind of like a family plan. I think I did a speed test on my phone. It said this would probably not be entirely accurate or fully utilized, but it was like, you have, I think it's like 73 ping, and I want to say it was like 100 something download, but I don't want to say that was super accurate. Point being is, the internet's decent enough. So I give it a rip on my phone in my room where my wireless internet's just terrible at home, typically. I was playing Banjo Tooie, no problem, man. It was pretty crazy to me. I was thinking, and then I was like, no way. So I fire up something that probably would be a little less precise, like Octopath Traveler, walk around, turn-based combat. Dude, I was thinking to myself, this is perfect for this thing.
Easily.
I think turn-based games are really going to thrive there. I tried it here on this tablet. I played, I tried out Dark Alliance, made the dive back into that. I blew my parents' mind. I went in there. I literally said to them, I was like, I'm going to show you the coolest shit ever. So I explained to them, and they already know because they know I play a ton of games. I'm like, you don't know, I'm like playing off consoles. I said, I'm literally going to play those same games here on my tablet. And they were like, what is this? They couldn't believe it, man. They thought I was performing some type of magic trick.
Magic.
Yeah. And it looked good. It there was decent latency for what it was, especially on my home internet. I have yet to test it here. This is the main place I wanted to give it a rip. We pay for Fios internet here.
Let's go.
And, that's some of the best internet you can get. So I'm going to really give it a good try. And I plan to make a video on it, just talking about it, because I've never had an opportunity to lay my hands on it. And I've been really impressed with it because it also brings the possibility of, if you're a PC player, you've never had an Xbox, you can play Gears now on PC. You can play Fable 2, Fable 3 on PC. I mean, that's exciting. So there's that level of accessibility. And of course, we know come those next gen games like Redfall, like Starfield, it's going to work backwards where, hey, you got an Xbox One, you don't have the new console yet, you can stream it if your internet holds up. And that's huge, man. I mean, I was playing it, and I'll say when I played it, it was more like, this isn't my ideal way of experiencing it. But if I have decent internet, but I don't have 500, $600 to throw at a console right now, even with the Xbox All Access program and all that stuff, making it hard to not say like, hey, let me buy in. Of course, the limited availability, those options may be more difficult to find. The fact that I can try it and maybe even just gauge interest and be like, I like this, and when I get my Series X, I'm going to buy this game with it.
Right.
That's huge. Not only that, no downloads. You just click the game. It's like, we're preparing your stream experience. Boom. There it is. I'm like, what? There's a lot about it that was really cool to me. Really, really cool. And like I said, my reaction may be a bit delayed, but I've only been able just to talk about it until now. I can say I've experienced it.
It's pretty cool. And another last part I want to say about it, you know, with you nailed it with older hardware, like the base Xbox One, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know, I think Phil, he just recently did an interview, and you know, shout out to Ryan and those guys, and basically they talked about that is a big initiative for them, where you look at something like a Microsoft Flight Simulator. We know damn well the base Xbox One is not running that. Like, look at the Series X is going to do 30 frames per second.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So they're looking at it because they're so on game preservation and bringing everyone forward. An option for a lot of the older consoles will be streaming, and he did mention that specifically. So it's something that they want to get behind. And I think it's pretty cool. Like you said, is it for everyone? Is it the perfect experience for everyone? No, but it's an option, and for some people, it's going to appeal to. The key for them is going to be how, in my opinion, they market and make people aware of the Game Pass, game streaming, ultimate combo kind of thing. So that's what I'm at.
Absolutely. One of the questions we got about this comes from Mike Poe. Hey, Dukes, any advice for a diehard TV and controller person looking to give Xbox cloud streaming on a tablet a go? The big hangups for me are, quote, where would my tablet go, end quote, and, quote, where are there any good peripherals or accessories that would enhance the experience, end quote. There are times my wife takes over the TV for the evening, and I'd like to continue the fun on a tablet, but I'm such a cranky, change-fearing curmudgeon who is stuck in his ways. Thanks, and have a step in the water while wearing your socks kind of day. Whoa.
Okay.
What do you think? Do you have any tech in mind for this?
He's saying tablet. Obviously it depends. Obviously, if he's obviously Apple. So you want to go through the browser setup. Bluetooth controller with your Xbox, kind of thing. Also, I will say, I was actually very impressed with the Xbox One headset, the new one, in as far as utilizing that, with a tablet, with a laptop, stuff like that. I actually been trying it out, and it was actually pretty cool. So I would say that if you're in that, in the ecosystem, a lot of my friends initially, when xCloud came out, they were not the phone guys. They were like, look, I want a bigger screen. So whether it be on the Android side, 10-inch tablet or whatever, or on the Apple side. So yeah, I think that's the best way to go. I don't have off top a couple of the models, that I would recommend, but
okay.
There are, I believe, a couple of articles, like if you search like best tablet for xCloud and stuff. There's a couple of people that have like their top 3, top 5. There's a couple of, but yeah, what do you think for them? You think you should give it a shot?
Yeah. So first thing is that I don't even know if you need to do Xbox cloud streaming. I guess it would be a form of it, but there is remote play. So if you're in the same room as your wife or your console is, you can literally stream from your console to your tablet in a more direct manner. And that's pretty easy to set up. I was just double checking it. I do want to borrow a suggestion that Carrick made, which is a pretty low cost buy-in compared to like this iPad here, which I use for like all of my work, from writing our game to writing this show, and it's literally my companion. Like I don't know how I went like 10 years without this thing, but we managed. But I know that's a big investment, right? And so I suggest the Amazon Fire tablet. This is one that's compatible with xCloud, with the later versions, of course, with like Android 9.0. And it would have its own dedicated app, so it wouldn't even run through the browser. That's the other cool thing. So you could fire this up, try it out for yourself, and see what it's all about. And it would not be a huge buy-in. It would be in the 70. I'm looking now. There's a Fire HD 8 tablet. I'm not sure. You would have to check certain websites to see what would work best. This is a 2020 release though, and it's $71 on Amazon.
Right. Okay.
Free shipping. Okay. So these are ones that you can take a look at, and you could easily just Bluetooth your controller to the tablet, At least that's how it worked on Apple, but I can't imagine the process is much different for something like Amazon. But you could link it up and then you could play. So
Yeah.
overall, the setup might cost you like $100 or so. And from what I've played, especially with you, where it seems like you're not on the go, where you'd be like Cog at the doctor's office or whatever, but you'd be able to fire this up in the living room with your wife while she watches a show. You could leave your console on and stream it straight to this tablet and keep playing it. I would recommend, if you're watching the video version, I have one of these kind of folios that like has a back to it that kind of gives it like a kickstand almost, puts it on an angle so you don't have to like rest it in your lap or whatever. That would probably be good for you to have. And I don't know what the wireless headphone connectivity is like for an Amazon tablet. If you're looking for that to accompany it, so you don't distract your wife as well. So you might want to look into a pair of headphones that syncs up with it. Whether you I don't personally care about a wire when I'm playing a game. I always have one of these just dangling over my shoulder or whatever, so it doesn't matter. But just be sure to check that out. I can't make any specific recommendations on that because I don't know the compatibility. But those would be my picks personally for a cheap buy and try it out for yourself. And let us know when you give it a go how it works for you. So we'd love to hear from you, Mike.
Definitely.
Number 6. All right. July Xbox games with gold. I am forever.
You're bubbling with enthusiasm. I hear you right now.
I am forever thrilled to see what they put together for these lists, man, because it's just incredible. So available from July 1st to the 31st is Planet Alpha. Available from July 16th to August 15th is Rock of Ages 3 Make and Break. Then, available July 1st to the 15th, Conquer, Live, and Reloaded. Last but not least, Midway Arcade Origins is available July 16th to the 31st. Cog, what do you make of some of these games here? You have thoughts
about that? Look, man, we know what's going on. You know what I'm saying? With games ago, look, I'm an OG. I'm a Gen Xer, so maybe I look at the Midway Arcade or shit just to see what's going on from back in yesteryear, kind of thing. But games ago ain't been my thing, man. I just roll my. I think they're just honestly in a transition period with this thing, and but
clearly,
it's just people. Is there anything that's catching your eye there, sir?
Conquer, I guess.
Conquer,
Conquer. Yeah, that's what always happens. You have like this one hang up, and then you probably got like I bet someone's gonna write in and say, "Well, Matty, Rock of Ages 3 is actually quite good."
It's pretty fun, right?
That just happens every time. I sit here, I throw the list down the tubes. I'm like, this is not that great. We know what's happening. I repeat myself, and then someone goes, "Well, guess what, Matty? Planet Alpha is actually a 10 out of 10. I look it up. I'm like, no way. And it's a decently reviewed game.
Yeah, salute.
Part of my ignorance, but yeah, it's just clear where they're at. And of course, I think that we'd rather see these games be in Game Pass.
Agreed.
I'm also going to add one item to our news list. This will actually be 8 because we're going to, of course, talk about Bloober Team in a little bit and just what's going on with them. But first, I want to talk about trouble on the indie front, where, we've seen a pretty interesting development here, man. And you brought this to my attention, so thank you for that, because we otherwise would not have had it in the show if you didn't throw it in the doc. So this is from Ian Garner, who is the co-founder of Neon Doctrine, a video game publisher. And they, like I said, posted a thread on Twitter, which described the experience of listing an indie game on the PlayStation Store. Presumably the PlayStation Store. I would it seems allegedly that way. We'll read the whole Twitter thread. Normally I like to summarize, but I think people should just hear it word for word. Because it's involving a direct experience. So Ian says, okay, I'm mad enough to burn some bridges because honestly, what's the point of a bridge that I'm not allowed to cross? So here's a thread about Platform X. I will not be defining Platform X, but it's the operator of a very successful console and does not have Game Pass. So that to me
one.
To me points to PlayStation. I would imagine it's possible it's the Switch, but as we get deeper in, I think it becomes more apparent. Platform X gives developers no ability to manage their games. In order to get your promotion, you must jump through hoops, beg, and plead for any level of promotion, and a blog is not as good as they think it is. That would PlayStation, by the way.
Right.
If Platform X doesn't like your game, no fanfare, no feature, no love. There is nothing you can do to fix this. Wish lists have no effect, so all your personal marketing means nothing to Platform X. All that matters is their evaluation. How is this evaluation done? Don't know. They don't share that, nor will they share the value they ascribe to my game. So before you launch, you need to develop your game for Platform X, get through their incredibly difficult lot check spread over 3 generations of backend software, submit a Platform X specific trailer, write a Platform X blog, which submit multiple forums for social media. 4, 3, and 4, which is submit a Platform X specific trailer and Platform X blog. It says you need to go through an account manager. When asked how to get to an account manager, we were told, I'm not sure. They are assigned by resources. So continuing on, by the way, you cannot even do a launch discount without their approval, and it is, quote, very limited, end quote. That's right. You can't do the thing that every other platform does, meaning the Platform X owners will always get the worst deal. But don't worry. There's a way to guarantee you get featured. All you need to do is spend a very reasonable minimum of $25,000 to get featuring. And then 30% of your subsequent earnings. Bargain. Now, when your game is on the platform, likely without any support from Platform X, you may think, no problem, I can sync up discounts on Platform X with Steam and others. Wrong. Discounts are invite only, and invites are also very limited. I apologize. This is a long thread, but we only got a couple more tweets left. Very interesting here. It's been literally years since we could put a title of ours in discount, and I spoke to some other very popular devs today, and they had the same experience. So even if your game does well at launch and thrives on the other platforms, you may still never be invited. Why? Who knows? In conclusion, Platform X is super successful and awesome hardware, but their backend and process is straight out of the early 2000s. I have no idea how to succeed on this platform, and they won't tell me. Even if I do succeed, they may screw me anyways, which that's probably the biggest takeaway for me.
Yeah.
So for any gamers who have wandered in here, next time you're unhappy about your game never being discounted at Platform X or a game you want not launching on Platform X, please go and complain to Platform X. I'm going to walk my dogs and calm the fuck down. I may have more thoughts later. Please bear in mind, I am an English-speaking British guy who can travel the world, attend showcases, shake hands, and meet with those in power in these situations. If this is my experience, imagine what it's like for someone without my level of privilege. So, Cog, once again, thank you for sending this my way, because I think this is a really important thing for us to get into. As someone who is, we're very in our early stages of development, but as someone working on a game, obviously we'd be indie.
Yes.
This is concerning. I find this concerning on a personal level, but of course, as someone who's on the outside looking at the well-being of other devs, I find it pretty nerve-wracking that, we talk about algorithm for YouTube. This is a whole other level, man. So
talk about it.
You're the one who put this in my direction, so I want to pass it off to you. What do you feel about the trouble on the indie front here?
I mean, shout out to Attic. He brought it to my attention, and Lane I actually know personally. Lane is a person, I believe he was prior with Another Indie was the name of they went through a shift, a transformation. They had, I believe, a game, it was kind of like a Dark Souls-y indie version called Sinner's Sacrifice. Very cool game. It did pretty well. They had a lot of cool indie games they really punched above their weight. Okay. I felt. And it was one of those, I would go to a PAX East or, E3, and I would see their booth, and they would always surprise us. They would always have some good stuff. And decent relationship with him. He's always been cordial to I on his podcast and stuff. But yeah, when we saw this thread, Addy brought to my attention. He's like, "Yo, Lane's going off. What's going on?" So I'm like, "All right, let me see what's going on."
His name's Lane. I apologize. I said his name.
Yeah, no,
wrong.
it's fine, bro. I mean, I used to butcher his name. Yeah. It's Addict's man. So Addict tell me it's Lane. I'm like, all right, it's Lane. All right. So it's interesting because obviously, allegedly we can assume that it is PlayStation that is being mentioned here. As far as the process, as far as getting the stuff, the thing I want to point out just for clarity is the whole 25K part, I believe. From what I was told, Microsoft also does have a fee in that vein also. So I know there's a point of contention on the interwebs about that. Okay, fine. But to me, the bigger issue is, the process of getting your game seen, visibility, and why do we have to go through hoops to be heard? And I know you're making a game, and these are the things that concern you because I'm not trying to make this a dump on PlayStation Fest, but I remember during the beginning of the PlayStation 4 era, right? And you see the things like Resogun, we talk about
Mm-hmm.
Housemarque, right? They seem to be like embracing indie culture and making that the place. And at the time, if you recall, Xbox was way behind the ball.
Yeah,
Like the
yeah,
idea at Xbox thing was in the infancy stages
yeah.
and things of that nature. So the problem I struggle with is one, not getting answers for just clarity. What's the criteria to be featured? Also, discounts. Like if you can't discount your game and you're still at that price, like
That's
it
huge,
really
man.
puts
Yeah.
it puts you at a competitive disadvantage. So these are concerning. And I'm seeing a lot of the indie developers get behind lane right now, and you know, and tweet stuff out, and you know, some are saying they've had similar experiences and things like that. And you know, I'm curious because again, you said you're making a game,
Mm-hmm.
and you know, what do you think about this? Like as far as like, you know, trying to get your game on the storefront, visibility, and all of this stuff.
Yeah, of course. The cost is something that I assumed was a thing, right? You always assume like that's. I want to make it clear that that'd be the least of my problems in the terms of like what to expect. It's more so like you said, the visibility. It's
Mhm.
not like I didn't imagine it this way, but it's not like YouTube where once your video starts popping off, like it just keeps rolling and rolling and rolling. Like
Right.
it very much is a situation where I feel like the deck is already stacked against you. It's already such a high risk business. I feel like it's the duty of these platform holders to try to get your game out there. And obviously, no matter what, some games will fail, some games will succeed. Not everyone can hit these home runs. It's not what we're asking for. But general discounts to say, like, hey, I want to competitively price my product. Like it is at $20. It's been out for half a year. Christmas is
Mhm.
rolling around. We want to put this thing at $10. We want to cut the
Right.
price in half and get more players in, get more people talking about it. That should not be a battle because it's your product, it's your choice. You should be able to knock it down. It's just that simple. Like you should
Yeah.
just choose it, and it either way. I don't think PlayStation should really have a say in it.
Right.
I will touch on the idea that because I almost forgot this part.
Mhm.
While $25,000 is a lot of money to get
Mhm.
featured on the PlayStation storefront, it does give your game a lot of exposure. But I think it's a step too far when they're like, we're also going to take like another cut of your earnings. I think that's once again just say like it's almost punishing you for getting more sales.
Yeah.
It's like if
Yeah.
you want us to pay us to pay $25,000 to be on your storefront, sure, but we're investing so that we have that exposure to sell more copies of the game, and they
Right.
already get a cut. So they're taking more of
Yeah.
that. I mean,
Yeah.
or maybe not even more, just maybe that same cut. We're
Right.
not sure on that. But from my perspective, I've said this before that, of course, I can't guarantee this. My goal with my game is like I want it to be day one Game Pass. I want to go through that program because I believe in
Mhm.
exposure. But the
Yeah.
difference here is what we're seeing is Xbox is saying if I came to them with my game, it's not guaranteed. But we've heard
Right.
developers say you approach them with your game. Here's our game. We want to put it on Game Pass.
Right.
Xbox will pay you. That
Yes.
is the difference. They will say like, "What do you
Mhm.
need?" And it's not like they're just this charity fund. Of course,
Right.
you've got to do something for them. You got to be bringing something that's interesting to them.
Of course.
But the difference here is some developers can make that finish line. Some developers don't get put
Yes.
out of work because of this. They don't get into a stressful position because of this. That's I think, and once again, like Cog said, we don't want to turn this into a PlayStation Dunk Fest. But I think
Mhm.
as platform holders, that is your bare minimum obligation with these smaller devs coming in. With AAA,
Right.
be more selective on your promotion, of course. Like
Of
that's
course. Of course.
multi-million-dollar investment.
Mhm.
But when it comes to these smaller guys who need what are essentially pennies to these corporations in the
Mhm.
thousands, I feel like all they need is exposure because a lot of times these indie games are trying things that others aren't, and they're at the right price tag they can hit. So for me, man,
Mhm.
like I just look at what Xbox is doing with ID at Xbox, and I've said this before. I've said it in videos. I think I said it last week on the podcast here. You're gonna see a swing in the winds of change are blowing through the indie scene. You're gonna see them start
Mhm.
going to Xbox because they're signing up exclusives. They're signing up day one Game Pass. There's just way more ways to secure your funding. And as someone who's making a game, can tell you right now, I'm keeping my eye on Xbox 100%. Not because I just run this show, but
Right.
because my goal is to keep, like any other business owner, my goal is to keep and protect mine and mine own. And that's the
Absolutely.
goal, right? You want to get your game out. You don't want to sink yourself in the process. And if someone can ensure that, you take that opportunity for sure. And PlayStation's not providing that right now.
Yeah. I mean, just to double down, you're on fire, bro. You know, from what we hear as far as Game Pass and these type of stuff, like, obviously every situation is different, but to your point, right? Like, last time I was here, with you guys, I mentioned, Until the End as a game. And it was a game that was near and dear to me because at the end of the day, I love the concept. It went away. I didn't know what happened. And then they kind of resurfaced and, they were able to get in Game Pass. I remember cheering for them. I was like, oh, wow, this is cool because they couldn't get across the finish line. They presented it to Microsoft and then they were able to get their money, so to speak, up front, allowed them the security to then finish the project and get that thing out. And then you talk about Game Pass, you talk about the exposure, you talk about being on the storefront, sharing the storefront with all these other big games, you know what I'm saying, whether it be Gears, Halo, Forza, whatever. And that's huge. That's huge. And it's a beneficial. Now, granted, not every game is going to be accepted to Game Pass and every deal is different, but I'm with you on independent developers being able to be worked with and have the opportunity to be in a competitive space.
Right.
So, when all you want to do is get your game discounted or just allow it to have a semi-equal playing field with others, and you're prevented with all these robots. I think the thing that frustrated me the most when reading Lane's thing was that he doesn't seem to be getting a lot of communication back as to what he needs to do. Because it's one thing, you know what I'm saying, to say, okay, yo, you can't, right? But it's one thing if no one's answering. Like, you're calling customer support, so to speak, and no one's saying, yo, why isn't this working? Or why isn't it? And then you got to go talk to another dev and say, hey, are you having this issue? Like, that's a structural issue, in my opinion. Again, we're hearing one side. I want to be, again, not making it a dunk fest, but that's the part that concerns me.
Of course.
Are other indies going through this on that storefront? Because, it would be surprising to me because they were, PlayStation always considered them, especially the PS4, like they were the indie champion. They were really doing well.
So many good ones.
So I'm worried about the focus shift. Are we getting back into this blockbuster only thing, and we're not? You know how this is going. So I'm glad we were able to talk about it. I wanted to get your feedback on it because this is definitely a hot one. That's on the internet.
Right? Yeah, and it's super important to tackle because you're just seeing the pendulum swing back and forth when it comes to this indie game and these developers. Like I said, they're smaller, so $25,000, that's a lot of money no matter who you are. I think unless you're one of these big corporations, then you're like whatever. So I think if anything, maybe adjust the rules for the indies, like make it 10,000. Right. Maybe that's a little more easy for them to stomach if they have a publisher like a Devolver at their back or something along those lines.
Yeah.
So it's going to be interesting to see if PlayStation responds at all, which I doubt they will. And I'd be interested to see what Nintendo does with their indies because they're also a very attractive indie platform and a lot of people flock to them. And in fact, we've seen games like launch on Steam, do well, and then they come to Switch and they just sell like triple the amount. So there's a scene there as well. And there's a hunger for it from their fan base where, there's something percolating there for sure.
Absolutely.
Number 8, Bloober Team. Oh boy. So Cog, you haven't heard, but I make it very clear that that when it comes to Bloober and the medium, we are not fans. We are not fans.
you not that bag right there.
We make it very clear. Usually I'm not on that rude grind, but I make it very clear that the medium was insultingly boring.
Yeah, I feel you. It's not for everyone. It's not for everyone, for sure.
Did you like it, by the way?
It was okay. No, bro. Okay. No, you're not dunking. Don't get me wrong. I'm being nice. I'm being respectful. It wasn't what I thought it was gonna be. You know what I mean? And my main issue was the dual world thing. I was like, kind of feel a little gimmicky, to be honest. You know what I'm saying? I was expecting a more transformative experience, like, yo, there's two worlds. And I was like, this is camera angles and okay, cool. Not saying it ain't no difficulty in making two worlds render, but I'm with you. Like, I wasn't like, oh my, this is the greatest. Nah,
this is why you're here, right? I'm the rough edge, and you just rounded me out and do a smooth cut there. You were just like, hold up, man, I got this.
So I got you, bro. I got you.
All right, so we now have a pretty good idea of what they're doing next. First, I want to go back to a report on IGN from February of 2021, where in an interview with GameIndustry.biz, Bloober Team said they were working on another horror IP with a very famous publisher. And they said that we've been doing this for more than a year on another gaming project, another horror IP. And they can't tell you who, they can't tell you what the project is, but I'm pretty sure when people realize we're working on it, they will be very excited. And the rumor has been Silent Hill. And then today, as we got ready to record this, we got a new update here that Konami and Bloober Team, who have made The Medium, Blair Witch, Observer, have announced a strategic cooperation agreement that will see the two companies developing games together, which would obviously, I think, lean more into that they're making a Silent Hill game. The report has also been that Konami is just outsourcing their IP to tons of different partners,
Right.
which is interesting. But that there's also potential of multiple Silent Hill projects being in development. This I don't think necessarily erases Blue Box, but I think given the type of game that Bloober Team makes, they have only made horror games.
Yeah.
And then teaming up with Konami, you can likely safely assume, kind of like our last story, I think you could connect the dots safely enough to go and talk with a sense of legitimacy of Silent Hill is going to Bloober Team. I'm excited to see. I'll put it this way. I'm happy I'm not a Silent Hill fan right now because I don't think this would be a move that makes me feel confident. I don't think Bloober Team's all that great. I just, they've had they're the type of developer that they seem to keep clicking away, and they seem to they're like the sniper ghost warrior of horror games. They just have found this pocket where people are like, this is my kind of horror experience, and that's great. That's great. It's what I think, once again, as a dev, it's probably all you can ask for, really, is like, hey, we got our audience, and it's brought them to here with a very popular IP, which can bring them to a new level. And so I'm wondering if Microsoft, in their history of Bloober now with Medium, I wonder if they're knocking on the door going, hey, let me in. I want a little bit of this right here. I'm just wondering there. But Cog, I want to pass it off to you.
Yeah.
What do you think of Konami, number one, getting back into the video game space? But do you have any history also with Silent Hill?
I mean, the original two, yes. Yeah, I remember playing those. Those are big for its time. The fog and the different style of horror. I've always felt it was that, it was a different, darker horror than the kind of Resident Evil, the initial early entries. So, I mean, I liked it. As it went on, I kind of waned on my Silent Hill love, and then I kind of fell out of love with it. So, initially strong, and then as it kept on, no. But I hear you on the Bloober thing. Like, I feel for people who are like hardcore Silent Hill, because I don't know if they like doing flips for this, right? I don't know if they're doing flips based on, the Bloober Team situation and the Medium, right? So, to Bloober's credit, they, like you said, they found their lane, their niche as far as what they want to do. And I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, didn't Medium kind of like tap into one of the Silent Hill creators or some type of
I think the soundtrack.
Yeah, like the sound or something. I want to say something they've leaned in. So they're kind of hints to me. They're a little bit of tea leaves that, they've been a fan of the series, that they've been inspired by it, kind of thing. So, I'm willing to give it a shot. I think for me, though, I got to be brutally honest, though. Matty, I need that engine, bro. Like I need it to look, because that was another thing. I was just like, damn, like I conceptually I see what they were trying to do with the Medium, but I just need an engine set up. I need the real production value and really to take it to the next level, to give respect to that franchise. You know what I mean? So, that's why I'm not doing flips of it. I'm very curious how the Silent Hill community feels about this. You know what I'm saying? Because that's a hardcore, that's a ravenous bunch. They out here, anything. What was the studio that was caught in the crossfire that everybody was all up in arms about?
Blue Box,
yeah. So that's going to be the one. Is the Silent Hill community going to be feeling this? That's what I want.
Yeah, because what's happening here, and by the way, you were correct. The composer for Silent Hill, Akira Yamaoka, was the one who composed the music for the Medium.
Right.
And I think that's where some of the disappointment had leaned into.
Yes.
But what you're possibly seeing, let's say, because there's a chance, of course, we may have our answer eventually with what's going on with Kojima and Blue Box. So obviously we don't want to dive too deep into it. But there's always the possibility that Blue Box is exactly what they look like, which is this team that had a failed Kickstarter of about like $200, and they didn't seem to attract much attention. But the companies surrounding them are that of very big, important projects. But let's say they are exactly what they look like. You've effectively licensed out Silent Hill to two developers that that really don't kill it. And well, they kill it, but sorry, that's wrong. That's wrong. But
that's what a shot. That's what a shot.
It was too good to leave hanging.
I love it. It was funny.
But I don't know how I feel about their partners of choice. We'll see if Blue Box ends up being a legit developer. This statement could flip on its head immediately. But right now, not super crazy about it. We'll see how it goes in the long run, and I'm curious what that means for the likes of Metal Gear and other Konami IP, Contra, Castlevania.
Yes.
Castlevania joining a nice renaissance. We know they've been doing collections. We saw them do like a Contra collection. We're now seeing a listing online of a Castlevania Advance collection, which would take all the Game Boy Advance games and probably do kind of what Mega Man Zero did and kind of squeeze down the image a bit to play it on the big screen. And that'll be awesome to see. I'm looking forward to that. So Konami's getting back into the gaming space, and I'm very excited to see what else they do because they have these great IP, and I think they're doing what's ideal, right? Just hand them out to people who care, right? Obviously, Konami has shown, as it stands now, they don't care. So hand them to people who care and collect your check, right?
Yeah. That's what it seemed like it's doing, man. I just hope that, like I said, the execution happens, and again, make sure you give proper reverence and respect to these franchises. They deserve it. These are iconic franchises.
I agree. So that's it for our news this week. A pretty exciting week. Lots happening. And now we move into our Game Pass / Back Compat pick of the week. This week we got a Game Pass pick of the week for you. And of course, as the new co-host, Cog, I want to go ahead and have you put your pick in. What are you suggesting people download this week?
I gotta rock with your squad, man. I'm kind of embarrassed that I didn't play it at launch, but Doom Returnal, man.
It's your first time. All right.
Yeah, man. I was out there fragging, and it's the perfect time right now because, again, I missed out at the launch. You know, got the Game Pass situation, but you got the new modes, bro. You got the 3 new graphical fidelity modes. I think they got the ray tracing mode. They got a performance mode. So I fired that bad boy up. Looks phenomenal on Series X, man. This thing is moving and shaking. I'm doing the kills. I'm ripping people apart. I'm like, yo, this is crazy. Like it's just mindless, fun with just great music, and then you jamming out, and it's just I think it does take itself seriously enough, which is where's in that nice mix. But if you haven't messed around with it, it's a technical showcase. You got your VRR, it looks beautiful. I got a flex on my CX OLED right now. It's looking like if you got that variable refresh rate, bro, you out here shining, looking good, man. I'm telling you, HDR 10, everything is good, and even affectionately we call it Little Man, the Series S. 2 graphics mode. They got a performance mode, fidelity mode. I believe they're rocking at 1440, and I think they're doing 60. I think they even 120. They got 120 mode on Series S too. Yeah.
Oh.
So, bro, like anybody who missed out, Joe, fire that up. A good Game Pass game, as well as right now this week that update drops. So you really get that optimization on next gen consoles. So Doom Eternal for me.
Yeah, man. I played this game when it came out, and I was not. It's interesting to see how the conversation on Doom Eternal shifted. I was one of the people who said, I like Doom 2016. It was a good game, but felt like it dragged on a little too long. I felt the way that they doled out upgrades and exploration wasn't that good. And people were like, well, it's Doom. They need to do less of that. They need to be in your face. It's fine. Then Eternal comes around, and I think they mastered the formula. They're like, we got the action, we got the exploration, we got the collectibles, we got the hub base. You got your moments of quiet and downtime. And I think because the product shows so much, is I started to see people shift a little bit, not generally speaking, but like I would just see more often now than not, people would start to shift to my line of thinking with how 2016 was, just not as good. Like it was a great game, it was a great start, great framework, and they built on it. So I'm happy it exists. But it just playing Eternal, even if you haven't played 2016, just dive into Eternal. It just takes that formula, turns it up a notch. There's not really a story there. You're deeply tracking.
Yeah.
It's Eternal here's the thing though. If you do care, I don't know if you've ever messed around with it, Cog. The codex though, the entries, dude, these are deeper than some RPGs.
Really?
It's you don't got to read them all word for word. I certainly did it, but just appreciate the word count in some of these bad boys. A lot of thought put in this universe, and I give them a big tip of the cap for that because a game's not about that at all. It's not, but they did put the time and effort into writing all that up, and there is something there for those who care, and it is worth a look.
Yeah.
Have you ever messed around with the battle mode, the multiplayer mode for Doom Eternal?
I have not yet. I got to tell you, I have not yet. Talk to me.
I'm not crazy about it. I kind of like their
Okay.
more. That's the one thing with 2016 that I liked more than Eternal was
okay.
that was more traditional PvP combat. This is, you have a Doomslayer. It pretty much takes the campaign experience and tries to extend it into a multiplayer environment. So you'll have like a Doomslayer, and then everyone can play as all different demons, and it's a really cool idea. But for me, it just didn't shake out in a way that was fun. It felt like you hop in. I'm curious if you'll have the same reaction if you do end up messing around with it. Where I hopped in for 2 matches. Went, all right, no,
I'm good.
I'm gonna go back and play the single player campaign.
Back to the single player.
Because the thing that was appealing about the multiplayer in 2016 was it just took all these weapons and turned into arena combat, kind of like Quake Champions. And you're like, oh, this is good. You just can kind of find a new level of mastery. But it felt different enough from the campaign, whereas this just felt like an extension of it. So it lost its identity a bit for me. This is a great pick, man. And I highly recommend those of you who have yet to download it, go get yourself some Doom Eternal.
Yes.
Especially the next gen update's looking fire.
That update.
And that update's been long anticipated. They've been talking about that for a while. So it's finally here.
Man. Really looks good.
And the DLC's out. I got to throw that in there too. So if you end up really liking it.
Yeah, ray tracing, bro. It's one of the few that's got ray tracing mode.
Yeah. 5 ending questions to wrap this show up. Thank you all once again for writing in. First one comes from Game Simp. Hey, Swingin' Dukes. Would you rather have a game nail its beginning or end?
Ooh.
I ask because many have claimed that Resident Evil 8, this is no spoilers, by the way, it's just location-based, so for those listening, don't worry, should have opened with the factory section and ended with the castle area. Personally, I would rather have a strong opening and a weak ending because early engagement is key for a game to grab my full interest. Ideally, one would ask for a strong opening, middle, and ending, like Ghost of Tsushima, which, by the way, is incredibly difficult to do in an open-world game. But alas, this is a privilege only few games can offer. Now, of course, we want to have both, but you got to pick one, Cog. I mean, what?
Ooh. Shout out to Games. So this is a great question. This is what I thought, because I thought of 2 distinct gaming experiences on both sides of the pendulum where I felt extremely strong, right? So overall, gun to my head, I'm going to say game start, right? Because I do feel it needs to grab you when you need to feel connected. Because I think that first 20 to 30 minutes, me personally, where I'm at as a gamer now, I can tell whether or not I'm going to commit.
Yeah.
I'm going to tell whether or not I'm into this. And sometimes I'm like, yeah, this ain't for me. You know what I'm saying? So that's important. But I will give a caveat in the sense that, now, we big Mass Effect fans here. And I remember, see, now this new generation has the luxury of playing Legendary Edition all the way through with all the enhancement and the enhanced ending of Mass Effect 3, which we had to wait for.
Yeah.
Right. So without spoiling for those who have not done it, but that was a game that, the ending, it was so not liked at one point that BioWare was forced to make an extended version and update it because, people felt like, damn, like at the time that, it wasn't worth the time investment, right? So I do feel that sometimes an ending can sour you. But if you put a gun in my head, I'm probably going to say I'd rather be wrapped in from the beginning and have a good start of engagement to GameStop's point, to keep me in. That's where I'm at now. But I'm curious, man, where do you stand on this?
I think a little different. And this may be because of the type of games I like. I like RPGs, let's go. So I understand a little bit more of not the slow burn, because I think, of course, you want to have a strong start, strong finish. But I think there's a difference between a strong start and an intriguing start. So you can have something like, this may sound out of pocket, but you can have something like BioShock Infinite, which is, by all technicalities, a very strong start. But when you really break it down, if you go into their design concept, nothing happens for about an hour. You walk around. You just walk around for an hour, but it's all world building. And so it invests you on a different level. So by all technicality, this is a strong beginning, but I really don't think when they were designing it, they thought it was. I think they were just building the world. And I think personally the strong ending is good, because I don't like when a game's front loaded. I think of Mafia 3 as an example, a strong one, where first 10 hours of Mafia 3 are phenomenal. phenomenal, man.
Mm.
Love Mafia 3's first 10 hours.
Mm.
Not that it's bad afterwards. It just, you settle into a rhythm, a routine. And to me, that can be more agonizing than a game that just starts a little bit slow and it finds its legs later on. Because sometimes I feel cheated when the game starts strong and it's almost like they thought, well, let's capture them. Let's get them interested so they can't leave. Like, you've locked the door behind me now. And of course I could walk away, but that's how I feel is I like, of course, characters need their time to develop. And this is where the RPG standpoint comes in. Characters need their time to transform. And what you don't like at first may end up being something you do like. And that's kind of the beauty of the game, is seeing it through. So for me, and I also love the sort of cloak and dagger approach some narratives take, which is you see maybe this very standard character, happy-go-lucky, and as you learn their truth, you learn that backstory, it's completely opposite of what was expected, or there's a new angle there. That's only shown as you get closer to them and the story progresses. So I personally like the stronger ending because it leaves a good taste in your mouth. And I think that I've played enough games where, it sort of stumbles out the gate and then you're like, man, what's going on here? And you're a little conflicted. But once you get to the deeper part, you realize that was all part of the experience. Random off the wall example.
Let's go.
Few people who listen to this may know what I'm talking about, but I'm going to throw it out there anyway. Is actually Pokemon Super Mystery Dungeon.
Let's go.
First, it's about a 30-hour game. First 10 hours, that's Pokemon. You're going into dungeons and stuff. You're just fighting.
Matty, that's 10 hours, bro.
I know.
I give you credit, but continue.
I know. And I'm not shortchanging it because it's not bad, right? It's not bad, but it's planting seeds all over. And so this thing's happening. And you're like, okay, something's happened here. Then it flips it on its head. Now it's this serious, dark game. Like someone stepped in and said, what the change this shit, and just flipped it on its head. And after that, it's 20 hours of just like rip roaring, plot twists, crazy shit's happening. I'm sitting there going, this is a Pokemon game, man? What? So yeah, by the way, not shortchanging that it's 10 hours, right? 10 hours is a whole game, right? I played Dead Space this past weekend. That was a 9-hour thing. So you could beat a game in that span. So I understand the value of time. But sometimes the slow burn, I think, can be well done. And it can also respect your time. Because if the overall product is like a 20-hour game and you take 5 hours to sort of plant the seeds and build your world, especially if you're new, then I don't know how else you can do it without rushing the player. And I think that's where gameplay solves things. If you make a fun game to play, then you can sort of digest the story however you please, as long as it's just a good game to play. Great question, though, GameSimp.
Yeah, fantastic question. Fantastic question.
X7 Nomus is our next question. It says, hey, Mr. Matthew P., longtime PlayStation fan, loving what you're doing with Duke. Here's a question. What's the point of buying an Xbox? Seriously, if I'm going to be able to play Xbox Game Pass from my TV, iPad, iPhone, computer, or mini fridge, then why would I invest in a new console? P.S. I nearly bought the Series S like 4 times and just couldn't pull the trigger. So maybe you'll convince me to become a renegade and just do it. I've gone back and forth on this, Cog.
Let's go. Where you at?
I feel like it's hard to recommend the console purchase, depending, because it's just there's so many angles, right? It's like, well, if your internet's good, then why save yourself the $1,000, man? I mean, where do you sit on this? Of course, because I know streaming isn't ideal, but it's an option for sure.
I think it's like, bro. I mean, I see this question a lot, and for me, it's just like, Microsoft don't care where you play it. Like that's the vibe I got. They like, yo, if you on PC, we're happy to take your Game Pass money there. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Like if you're here, if you're, TV, all that stuff, where they're happy. I really think their model is structured that way. And I think it's a struggle for the traditional gamer, right? Because the traditional gamer feels I have to buy the console in order to be invested into the ecosystem. And I just feel it's just the way they're set up is different. But as far as, shout out to Exormus, you talk about you had to pull the trigger on the S. I just pulled the trigger on the S just recently. And, I just got it for the bedroom and stuff like that. Love it, man. Nice. Absolutely love it. First of all, it's so small. It's much smaller than I thought it was. And it's so compact. And for a person that, obviously the pandemic, things are getting better. As a person that intends to travel a lot, that's something I can easily just throw in a backpack, right? And then boom, and I use that, and so for me, and you still have again, if you want to jump in the ecosystem, right, but you don't want to fully commit, you just like a couple of Xbox. The S is an attractive option. You know, it's an inexpensive just to get your foot in the door. So I think ultimately it comes down to where you're going to consume the content, because, you know, if you're a PC guy and you've got a nice rig, stay where you're at. Get Game Pass. You know, shout out to my boy Bontes. He's in that mode. I mean, he just got a series console, but before, that's how he was, you know, taking part of the ecosystem. So I think though, I will say the last point, the S is really going to be, I feel, the one that might get more people in who already have that primary console, whether it be, you know, PlayStation and Nintendo and stuff like that. And you can't get wrong with it. So that's where I'm at.
Yeah.
But Microsoft don't care.
Yeah, they don't.
They like, wherever you want to buy it, it's fine by them. They gonna get that Game Pass.
I always tell people that I think just the best way to go is a PlayStation 5 and a Game Pass subscription of wherever you choose, whether that be PC or you find your way into a Series S. If money is tight and you can get the all access program where you're paying like $20 a month until the payment's done, there's like no interest rate. I mean, why not at that point get the console? It really just depends what opportunities present themselves, where I'm of the mindset that, yeah, man, like if you're not all in and you don't feel like you need the Series X, which does boast stronger qualities, then go with the S and see what it does. I know some people are concerned about the longevity of this console. I'm really not. I think it'll be fine for the most part, but you know, you're going to see some drawbacks for games made on Series X versus S, and I think that spread may increase as time goes on. But it's a powerful little system. It's cheaper. But for some people who maybe want to get into the PC space now, you may want to just consider building the PC and continuously upgrading that. Eventually, you'll have bought multiple consoles. So if you're looking for something more price efficient, I would just say all access program one of the series consoles and get yourself a PS5 and just call it a day. Yeah. It's probably the most efficient method for your wallet. Sean Mason writes in, "Hey, sexy Matty, and hopefully new sexy co-host," which absolutely, man. My mom asked me, my fiance, sister, and dad how to get into gaming. She wants to start. She hasn't played a non-mobile game since Tetris on the NES. Wow. We are perplexed. Any suggestions on where we should start her off best? Sean M. I want to cut you off because I've answered these two questions right away.
Let's go.
But it just came to me. I was going to immediately go like, what do you think, man? But Tetris Effect is on Game Pass, Sean.
Yes.
It is on Game Pass. So you could give her an evolved version of the thing she played on NES and blow her mind. But I know Dustin plays this game, he says, once a month. He's a big fan of Tetris Effect. He loves it. It's a great soundtrack. So maybe tell her to give that a look. But what do you think? I haven't played since the NES. What is something that you think is accessible?
I got one.
All right.
I got one. And this is one that it's funny because I kind of get non-gamers to kind of just watch me play and see what's going on. Inside.
Oh.
Yeah, like, you know how many people's like, what is that? What is going on with this little boy? What is this world? You know, you got this whole dystopian thing, you got the atmospheric storytelling, and I've got people to purchase that game that are non-gamers and are so intrigued at what's going on. So it's a little dark, but it's simple enough with the button presses. And then what I like, it's very interactive. Like, people are like, hey, try that. But what about if you move that, switch kind of thing? You get people to kind of talk through it as a game. So shout out to those guys. That was I think it's Playdead, right?
Yeah.
They did Inside, because Limbo's a little harder, I felt, but I just felt something about Inside. Every time I throw that game on, people just like flock around me, and then I've had people pick it up. So that's one of mine.
I would throw out the Telltale games, or
yes.
There's like Return of the Obra Dinn, like these kind of walking What Remains of Edith Finch, these kind of walking simulators that tell a story.
Life is Strange.
Yeah, stuff that doesn't require precise reaction times.
Yes,
and that may be funny because I was like, oh, Tetris Effect, but I think Tetris is simple enough where maybe she would understand that. But I would throw those out there as well, just to simply roll them into it. Because my girlfriend, she loves video games, but she grew up with consoles, but then she stopped playing for many years. And then when we started dating, I was like, I'm rolling you back in. Like, you got no option. You're stuck with me now. You think you can play no games in this house? And so, I
you laid it down.
Yeah. So I bought her like a Switch. I helped her get her PS4, and tried to set her up. And the first game I set up for her on her Switch was Telltale Batman. just to get you. It sounds weird, but like familiarize them with the button presses. Where's Y? Where's X?
Yep.
That type of
Good
stuff.
point.
Because I look at it this way, man. Because Nintendo's just Nintendo, man. They put the X above the Y. Everything else is the same.
God, drives me nuts.
Just like, man, please,
drives me nuts.
It's reverse everything. I'm like, all right, whatever. But you know, if I'm thinking to myself, not to sound like I have an ego, but like if I'm messing these up, then you know, imagine someone new coming in. Maybe it's just what they're used to. But those Telltale games are good for familiarizing them with the controller, just kind of like how to function in a game. And then suddenly she put like 90 hours into Breath of the Wild when she knew what she was doing. Right. So, you know, it's one of those things where you want to roll them in, teach them the controller.
Yeah, no, perfect point. And I think it's like you said, that lessening that barrier with control, just because, again, it's not going to require these precise movements. And it's just about, okay, this is X, this is what. Yeah, you're right. That's probably the way to go. Yeah, Telltale.
I think that's all of them are fair examples. I think Inside, I've never played it, but that sounds like a really good example.
Oh, bro, we got to talk about that. You got to get that done.
Yeah, I know. I haven't played Limbo either.
To have a first Defining Duke fight. You ain't played it, bro.
Yeah, I know.
You got to play that one, bro.
I know.
It's so criminally underrated. Really check it out.
I know, like, the thing is I remember when Inside got announced, everyone was like, go play Limbo now. And I'm like, oh, yeah, definitely. It's like 4 hours long, of course. That's the thing. My Achilles heel is when a game is too short, because I always go, that's a weekend. We'll bang it out. Weekends just roll by. Weekends just roll by. So
I got you.
All right. Got 2 questions left. John Garlett is next. Hello, Dukes. I recently became very sick and was bedridden, and none of my normal video games were giving me comfort. I finally had to bust out Dead or Alive 6, and for some reason, that didn't make me go all hazy within 15 minutes of playing. Do any of y'all have a comfort game for when you're feeling under the weather? I'm finally starting to feel better this week and looking forward to returning to normal. Hope you all have a great week and 4th of July. We hope you are continuing to feel well, John. And I should have said this at the top of the show, we hope you're all staying cool out there. It's quite hot out.
Hot.
It's really hot out, man. I'm a runner, so I haven't been able to do any of that. I've been feeling. We talked about this funny enough when you were on before me, you and Carrick. I'm feeling stiff right now because I'm just sitting because it's way too hot to go on a run. But
crazy.
Do you have a game you go to when you're feeling under the weather? Because sometimes I don't game when I'm under the weather. I tend not to.
It's funny you said, I'm the same way. I can't game when I'm sick. It's so weird. Like, I need to be, it's a combination. Either I have to be rested, because I don't like playing tired, you know what I'm saying? And I definitely don't like playing sick. That's a tough one, man. Comfort game. I mean, I play Destiny so damn much. I guess that's my comfort game. I play that game way too much. I just like the music and the gunplay so much. But that's a tough one, man. I don't know if I have a game that I play, when I'm not feeling. What about you? Do you kind of get into that bag?
No, that's the thing is I think of when I got COVID, I stopped playing games. When I had the flu real bad, I stopped playing games because just all my energy's gone, and you don't realize it till you sit down to play. But games demand your attention, your focus, and while it feels so naturally grabbed, it's really not quite that. It's you are actively doing it. Just the games can be so compelling you don't realize it. And until I'm under the weather, it's always a reminder of that. So for me, I know when I'm feeling better when I can sit in the chair. Like when I had COVID, I couldn't play games. And then just one day I was playing Batman Vengeance on my PS2 because, we were on vacation. I had no work for a couple of weeks. So I was like, all right, let's fire up the PS2. I was playing that Champions of Norath. So, I mean, that felt good, but if just because I wasn't playing anything for a number of days. So
I agree.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mostly get in my movie bag during that time.
Yeah, that's probably a good idea, right?
You know what I'm saying? Catch up on your series and stuff like that.
That's what I did. Yeah, when I was after the second shot of the vaccine, I remember I grinded out Invincible. I watched a good half of the season one night and then I finished it the next day. Great show.
Nice.
Very rare happening for me too. Don't watch really anything. So
yeah, it's rare. I used to be that way too.
I gotta switch it up, right? Like I gotta get on that.
I gotta get Loki's out here. There's a lot of stuff I want to watch.
Yeah.
I haven't got a chance.
I watched WandaVision. At least I got that, right? Like
okay, you got one in, all right.
Well, here's the thing, right? I'm a maniac. So quick story.
Let's go.
All right. So do you watch anime at all?
Used to be hardcore. Now Kingdom trying to get me back. There's a new one out. Jubi something.
Jujutsu Kaisen?
HBO. Yeah, he's like, you gotta watch it. That's the one.
That's the one I was about to talk about. So,
okay. Great. I gotta watch it now.
Great show. I'm not crazy about the story, but the action's just, it's eye candy, man. It's so silky smooth. You're like, how did someone do this?
Yeah.
I have been on the last episode for a month and a half now, probably 2 months, and I just haven't finished it. It's a 20-minute episode. I'm telling you, man, like anything that's like bite size, I'm like, we can get to it. And I just fire it off, and I do other long-term things because I know I can wrap this up whenever. And I think that's just, I've been built for RPGs because if anything,
you're built for it. Yeah.
If anything is tight, I'm just like, we'll get to it, man.
I am so the opposite of you. That's so crazy. Like when you get older, like I like the shorter bite size. I'm like, okay, I could get that done in 7 to 8. You know what I'm saying? I feel like I could be productive because you know what happens to me? Like, I know you get it. Like, don't get me wrong. Like, there's certain games that I love everything about being engrossed in the world, and I don't have no problem playing for mad out. There's certain games that's going to hit that note. We talk about Mass Effect, stuff like that. But I think what has happened, I get intimidated. Like when you see something like Valhalla, and I'm like, yo, I don't know if I could commit to that, fam. That's a lot of commitment. So it's funny how we're on the opposite spectrum.
Right, absolutely. And you know, that's the thing is it's interesting because I have all these responsibilities. I do like when I hear a game shorter because for me, I'm like, oh, more room for opportunity. But at the same time, just I think it's just I'm bad with shows. Real bad.
So when you look at it like, it's going to be over too quick, I can get to it late. Like, what's your mentality with the shorter?
I really genuinely think it's a idea of I can finish this when I want. I'll do it tonight. And then I'll start writing for the game. And then I'll get wrapped up in that. I'm like, we can finish this tomorrow. I'm already on a roll.
I got you.
That's what happens. And so it's essentially procrastination, but it's like the confidence too of knowing this 20-minute Jujutsu Kaisen episode can be finished at my will when I desire. So,
and then it don't get finished.
Yeah, and then it just doesn't get finished. So it's just sitting there.
I'm understanding the mentality. I'm getting it.
It's not good. That's what we know.
We all got our quips, bro. I feel you, bro.
AJB's our last question. Hey guys, just recently got a Series X after abandoning the Xbox ecosystem when getting red ringed on the 360. When I know it launched in a bad state, I've been really impressed with Halo Master Chief Collection, the package, particularly the game's cross playlist and the stat keeping. Well, other game franchises would benefit from a living compilation like this. Gears seems like a logical series to me.
Yeah.
That's,
yes. I want that bad. I want that bad. I want that part 2 because I got spoiled. What is it? The Gears 1? Was it the Ultimate Connection? Well, you know, and obviously we know that they've been the room. You know, there's like a Kickstarter for like a Marcus Phoenix collection or whatever it is. They want that. I think Gears would benefit from it. Yeah, salute them because with AJ, as far as getting back into the ecosystem, they've done a tremendous job with Master Chief Collection and turning that whole thing around. Yeah, besides Gears, I can't really think of any other ones as far as compilations. What about you? Would you got any compilations you think about that could come back? And
see, the thing is I would have hit on Rare right away and be like, oh yeah, you know, that's an obvious one. But they did Rare Replay. I feel like Gears is not only logical, but you know, the game has to have an online component and it has to be a series as well. Because you could throw out a number of game franchises that Xbox has had. Like, Fable. I'd love to see like a Fable Legendary Edition of 1, 2, and 3. That'd be awesome. But you know, I don't know if because he said living compilation, where you know that to me says more along the lines of what Master Chief Collection is doing. Like, here's new armor, here's new season, all that good stuff, which I love to see. But personally, for me, I don't think we could really throw another answer out there aside from Gears. I think that's really just the best fit ultimately.
Yeah, I agree completely.
So that'll be our last question for episode 26. Cog, I think the future is very bright, my friend. That was an excellent episode. That was awesome. So I'm looking forward to many more. As always, we like to do a hashtag at the end of our episodes to make sure to check in who's listening this deep. And I love seeing the sea of comments. Usually like to tap into a subject that we touched on quite a bit and spin it in a Duke manner. So do you have any? It could be off the wall, man. Very low maintenance, like hashtag.
Let's go.
You got one?
Hashtag. Any hashtag? You know, just like game and chill, bro. Like, I mean, I'm simple, man. I'm a simple man. Like, I mean,
a simple DD.
Yeah, simple DD. Yeah.
That's what we do.
Let's do that.
There we go. Hashtag simple DD. Let us know you got this deep. Be sure to follow Cog, our new co-host, on his Twitter account. Other than that, stay tuned for, if you're a patron, we have a Get to Know Cog episode that'll go live pretty shortly after this patron episode goes live too. So keep an eye out for that. And if you're not a patron, sign up, get to know Cog a little bit more. And we'll be back next week for episode 27 with whatever the hell happens in the Xbox ecosystem. With that, Cog, any closing thoughts, or shall we wrap this up entirely?
Man, absolute pleasure in the realm of the Dukes. This is a beautiful day, my man.
Yeah.
Lord, man, I can still call you a Lord.
Oh, absolutely, dude, I love it. It gasses me up, man. I love it.
No doubt, man. It's a lot of fun, man. Great community questions. Love what everything everyone brought to the table, and great week of topics, man. I'm looking forward to the ride. Let's do this thing.
Absolutely.
Man. A lot of fun. Let's have some fun.
For sure. And we're going to. So thank you all so much once again for your patience, for your understanding, for your love, your support. We hope you enjoyed this episode. You're excited for the future, and we'll catch you all next week with episode 27 of Defining Duke. And until then, stay cool, take good care of yourselves, and we'll talk to you then. Peace out.
Peace.
Defining Duke, an Xbox podcast, is a product and trademark of Last Stand Media and Collins Last Stand LLC, and is recorded from the good old USA. The show was conceived by Matthew Mr. Matty Plays Schroeder and me, Colin Moriarty, and is written and produced by Matthew Schroeder. Defining Duke's executive producer is Dustin Furman, and the show is edited by associate producer Ben Smith. All of Last Stand's theme music is by Ramon Narvaez. As you know, all of Last Stand Media's shows, including Defining Duke, are fan-funded on Patreon at patreon.com/laststandmedia. The following names are at the producer support level or higher on Patreon, and we're grateful for your kindness and generosity.